Chapter 798. I don't hate you. Gong Yimo said shyly. Kim Yoon heaved a sigh of relief. Hearing Gong Yimo's soft voice, he could not help but ask, Then can I still kiss you in the future? Gong Yimo could not help but glare at him. Then, she realized that Kim Yoon really cared about this answer. His beautiful eyes were wide open, and he looked like a big dog. But Gong Yimo was amused by her own imagination. She nodded. All right, I'll let you kiss me. She looked especially beautiful when she smiled. This was also the first time she smiled in front of Kim Yoon. Kim Yoon could not help but stare at her in a daze. However, after laughing for a while, she suddenly felt that she was getting carried away and quickly stopped laughing. Her big eyes flashed with annoyance. How could she let down her guard so quickly? The other party was the young master. Kim Yoon saw Gong Yimo covering her mouth with her hand. Her annoyed look was so adorable that it could explode. He quickly put his arm around her shoulder and smiled. Don't be so nervous. Laugh if you want to. Say whatever you want to say. It's okay. Gong Yimo was pulled into his embrace. She could not help but look up and ask softly, But what if I say something and you get angry? He did not feel disgusted when Gong Yimo was so close to him. It could be said that their relationship had taken a qualitative leap. Kim Yoon quickly promised. I won't. I will definitely not be angry with you. Gong Yimo pouted. She thought to herself, You're the most unpredictable. You even hit me yesterday. However, she was indeed not a person who held grudges. The eldest young master treated her very badly. She remembered how he treated her badly and wanted to stay away from him. However, she had almost forgotten all the bad details. Now, she only remembered that she was slapped last night because the eldest young master was in a bad mood. Seeing that Gong Yimo did not speak, Kim Yoon felt a little guilty. He touched Gong Yimo's face and spoke as if telepathically. It was my fault last night. Can you call me back? Gong Yimo widened her eyes. Her meaning was obvious. How did you know what I was thinking? She was beautiful, and now that she was dressed up delicately, she was simply too adorable. Kim Yoon held her in his arms again and rubbed her for a while before he said with a warm smile, Come, let me hit you. Seeing that Gong Yimo didn't move, Kim Yoon grabbed her hand and slapped himself on the face. It was quite a loud slap. At least Gong Yimo felt pain in her hand. Gong Yimo was stunned. They were really fighting. Kim Yoon saw that she was in a daze. No matter how much he spoiled her, it didn't hurt at all when he hit her face. However, Gong Yimo subconsciously reached out and rubbed his head. She blinked her eyes and said uneasily, You really hit me. Kim Yoon laughed. It doesn't hurt. At this moment, the adoration in his eyes was almost tangible. Whenever he thought about how he could raise the woman he loved, pamper her, love her, and hide her away, he felt especially satisfied. God was so good to him. He didn't wait for a lifetime in vain. The eyes couldn't lie. Hence, Gong Yimo looked into his eyes and truly received his adoration. She was the kind of person who would definitely repay others for their kindness. Hence, she thought for a while and kissed Kim Yoon's face where he had been slapped. Does this make you feel better? Kim Yoon's eyes lit up. Then, he said with some grievance, I suddenly feel a little pain. Can you kiss me again? Gong Yimo, young master, had become so strange. At this moment, she suddenly realized something and said, Young master, why is there a mole near your eye? It wasn't there just now. Why did it appear after a kiss? Kim Yoon felt her soft fingers touch the cinnabar mole at the corner of his eye. She said with certainty, It wasn't there before. It's even red. Kim Yoon was shocked. Could it be that after he took over this body, his appearance would slowly merge with his previous appearance? He grabbed her hand and chuckled. You're still calling me young master? His smile was very gentle and had a hint of charm. That cinnabar mole made his face even more exquisite. His three-dimensional features revealed a charm that belonged only to Kim Yoon. This charm had once mesmerized everyone in the world. Naturally, little Gong Yimo was mesmerized as well. She couldn't help but blush again. Her gaze was somewhat evasive as she looked elsewhere. Kim Yoon felt that teasing her was especially fun. He hugged her soft and fragrant body and whispered into her ear. "Call me Big Brother, Chem?" The word HM made her heart itch. Gong Yimo was so seduced that she didn't dare to move. Call young master Big Brother? She didn't dare. Who knew if young master would suddenly change back? He would definitely be angry if she called him Big Brother. However, Kim Yoon didn't give up. He enjoyed the unique fragrance of his beloved woman while secretly laughing at her struggling appearance. So blissful, so blissful. "Call me Big Brother." As Kim Yoon said, his hand subconsciously pinched her waist. Gong Yimo's whole body instantly jumped. Itchy. She was extremely ticklish. Kim Yoon suddenly seemed to have found an interesting toy. He took the opportunity to carry Gong Yimo onto his lap. He didn't allow her to run away while he mischievously tickled her. "Call me Big Brother. Call me Big Brother and I'll let you go." Gong Yimo couldn't stand this. She struggled and said repeatedly, "Big Brother, Big Brother, stop tickling." As she spoke, she wanted to get off his body. How could Kim Yoon bear to do that? With her warm and fragrant body in his arms, he felt like he was floating. He continued tickling her and then said softly, "Stay with Big Brother from now on, okay?" "Okay. Okay, okay." Gong Yimo laughed until tears came out, but she couldn't break free. As she laughed, she looked at him with a pitiful expression. Seeing this, Kim Yoon's heart softened and itched unbearably. That terrifying possessiveness instantly occupied Kim Yoon's entire vision. He hugged Gong Yimo tightly. He couldn't wait to merge her into his flesh and blood. "No matter what happens in the future, don't leave Big Brother, okay?" Gong Yimo was just tormented by him and then hugged again. She felt a little strange, but still said obediently, "Okay." Unexpectedly, Kim Yoon hugged her even tighter. "You'll only like Big Brother from now on, okay?" Gong Yimo blinked. "Even mommy can't like you." Kim Yoon released her slightly. He looked into her eyes and said seriously, "Big Brother is right. You'll only like Big Brother as a man, okay?" Gong Yimo tilted her head slightly. She didn't quite understand. The two of them were so close. Kim Yoon couldn't help it. He held his breath and kissed her gently on the lips. He didn't dare to go deeper because she was too young. However, this kind of intimacy was so sweet that it could drive him crazy. After a long while, he finally let go of her while panting. His dark gaze locked onto her blushing and dazed little face. "Like this, you'll only kiss Big Brother, okay?" Chapter 799. Gong Yimo looked puzzled. However, since young master was being so nice, she decided to go along with it. Otherwise, she would be the one at a disadvantage. Hence, she nodded her head in a daze and sold herself out. "All right, I'll only let you kiss me." "Who am I?" Jin Yoon grabbed her hand and bit it gently on the side of his lips, asking mischievously. Gong Yimo frowned and became serious like a little adult. Kim Yoon forced her to take that step towards him and asked again. "Who am I?" In the cramped space, his gentle voice made her feel oppressed for no reason. Gong Yimo was finally defeated. "Brother." Kim Yoon instantly revealed a smile. "Moa is so obedient. Come, call me again, brother." Gong Yimo was against it. However, alright, this was the first time someone was so nice and gentle to her. It was normal that she couldn't reject it. "Moa is so obedient." Kim Yoon hugged Gong Yimo and enjoyed it with his eyes closed. He knew that he didn't want to be her brother, but this was already the most intimate identity he could think of. Moreover, Moa used to call him Brother Kim Yoon. Now that she called him brother again, he actually had an indescribable impulse. There was also a taboo joy that made his soul tremble. After hugging for a while, Gong Yimo felt a little uncomfortable. She moved a little and asked in a soft voice, "Brother, can we go home for dinner?" Her big eyes observed Kim Yoon's expression without blinking to confirm if he really didn't mind. Kim Yoon looked at her deeply. That kind of focus made it seem as if she was the only one in the world. He smiled gently and pinched Gong Yimo's face. "All right, let's go home." Perhaps it was because his smile was too good-looking, or perhaps it was because his tone was very gentle. At that moment, Gong Yimo could hear the sound of her heart thumping. The Jin residence was brightly lit. The master and madam were on a business trip, but the servants didn't dare to relax. Without the master, the young master, that little tyrant, was even harder to serve. However, when Kim Yoon returned, everyone's eyes widened. Because the young master came in holding the hand of the burden. Moreover, the burden had changed greatly. She looked just like a little princess. Could it be that the young master's personality changed? No, this must be the young master's new way to prank her. Seeing that the young master had returned, he said, "Young master, the master and madam are on a business trip and will only return for a week." Master asked you. He carefully observed Kim's face. Speak. Jin Yoon glanced at him. The sudden appearance of Qinghua's aura stunned the butler. He said, "Young master at home, master, young with young master, young master." He thought that Kim Yoon would be angry, but Kim Yoon's expression was indifferent. After being an emperor his whole life, he could only hide his emotions in front of Mo-er. Got it. I need you to do something for me. The noble aura that seemed to come from his bones made the butler lower his head. I'll do as you say, young master. But what he was thinking was, why did the young master seem to have changed? This aura was somewhat similar to the noble aura of the old master who had passed away. Help me change my name. Kim Yoon, the Yoon in promise, remember? The butler was puzzled. This matter wasn't a big deal, but it wasn't a small one either. Their family had a genealogy, and changing the name would require a lot of changes. However, when he saw Kim Yoon's indifferent expression, his heart trembled. Yes, I'll do it right away. Kim Yoon nodded in satisfaction and pulled Gong Yimo inside. Gong Yimo was puzzled. Why do you want to change your name? After a day of intimate interaction, Gong Yimo was finally willing to take the initiative to talk to him. This was really a good sign. Kim Yoon pursed his lips and smiled. His noble aura instantly turned into a romantic one. He said softly, "Mo-er, do you think that Kim Yoon sounds nice?" Gong Yimo repeated it a few times and nodded. It sounds very gentle. She liked the gentle young master. As long as you like it. The servants who were waiting at the side were stunned. Was this really the young master? Was he possessed by something? Kim Yoon naturally knew what they were thinking. He didn't want to overdo it, so he glanced at everyone and spoke in his original tone. From today onwards, this young master has decided to be a good brother. If you don't treat Mo-er well, don't blame this young master for being rude. Everyone's doubts were dispelled. It turned out that the young master was acting on a whim and wanted to play the brother game. They didn't know how long he could last, but they couldn't show it. They all agreed obediently, but they were still disdainful of Gong Yimo. Kim Yoon narrowed his eyes, but he knew that going too far was as bad as falling short. After a long time, these people would naturally know that Mo-er was his favorite and couldn't be bullied. However, in order to let these people understand, during dinner, he very seriously and carefully served Gong Yimo. She was flattered as she ate. She always felt that the young master's abnormality would only worsen. After dinner, she decided to take a shower to calm down. In the bathroom, she carefully thought about what happened today. Although she was young, she wasn't stupid. With such a huge change, it wouldn't be right to say that the young master had other intentions. Then why? Did he really want to play the brother game on a whim? Would he continue to be so gentle? Gong Yimo couldn't help but think of the young master's extremely doting eyes. Then, she fiercely splashed water on her face. Gong Yimo, you mustn't fall into his trap. It's only been a day. The young master might stop playing after a few days. With this kind of feeling, little Gong Yimo showered for a long time before she slowly came out. In the end, she saw something the moment she came out. She saw the eldest young master in her room. Kim Yoon was flipping through a book when he heard the sound. When he looked up, his brain instantly crashed. Gong Yimo stood there in a daze, looking at him with a pair of big watery eyes. An extremely large pink towel covered her head. Her long black hair was half-dried and drooped down in little curls. She wore light blue pajamas with a yellow furry rabbit pattern on her chest. A pair of white jade-like feet stepped on the floor. No, it was as if she was stepping on Kim Yoon's heart. Why was she so cute? He felt like he was going to bleed. What should he do? Kim Yoon's mind went crazy. Those words that he didn't understand perfectly suited his current mood. Why was my sister so cute? I feel like I'm going to be killed by her cuteness. Can I touch that rabbit? I really want to hug it and eat it. I can't control myself. Kim Yoon's Adam's apple bobbed a few times before he struggled to blink his eyes and said hoarsely, "Come here." His gaze made Gong Yimo's toes shrink. Oh no, she wanted to run again. Chapter 800. However, she was used to being obedient, so she walked over with a bit of vigilance. Jin Yoon used a very invasive gaze to scan her up and down. The desire to tear her apart and eat her up was firmly suppressed by him. Only then did he reach out and pull her directly into his arms. "Young master." Kim Yoon couldn't help but pinch her face. With an indescribable affection, he said hoarsely, "Little fool, have you forgotten again?" Gong Yimo was hugged between Kim Yoon's legs. As the chair was high, Kim Yoon was taller than her. She looked up and gulped. "Brother." Her voice was soft. As she spoke, she tilted her head like a cat. Her eyes reflected the light from the ceiling, and her pupils seemed to have merged with the starlight. Her gaze made Kim Yoon feel suffocated instantly. Crooked head kill. Kim Yoon didn't understand where the urge to vomit blood came from. Was it really okay to be so cute? He silently swallowed a mouthful of blood. What should he do? He felt like he was going to die from her cuteness. He began to show the indifference of an emperor. With an expressionless face, he dried Gong Yimo's hair and said coldly, "Dry your hair more." As he spoke, he covered her face with a towel. He couldn't be indifferent because he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to control himself. He was afraid that he would do something outrageous. He heard that the maximum sentence was 3 years, and the maximum sentence was death. With her face covered, Gong Yimo was fiercely rubbed by Kim Yoon. Because Kim Yoon used a little too much strength, she was swaying left and right from the rubbing. She made a small sound of protest. "Brother. Brother." She thought that Kim Yoon was angry because she didn't call him brother in the beginning. After rubbing her for a good while, Kim Yoon felt that he had finally vented a little of his anger. However, when he lifted the towel to take a look, not only did the little girl's hair not look like a bird's nest, but her face was red and her hair was slightly messy. Her little mouth was half open as she panted. That look was simply, "Brother, your nose is bleeding." After a complete mess, Kim Yoon despised himself very much. "Kim Yoon, you are the emperor." In any case, when the first dance had taken the capital by storm, there were countless brothels that she had visited. How could she not have seen enough courtesans? Moa was still so young. Her body was just a little fairer, her eyes were a little bigger, and her face was a little cuter. She was so cute that it made people want to vomit blood. How could she really bleed? This was simply a stain on his reputation. Gong Yimo could not hear Kim Yoon's inner thoughts. At this moment, she was a little anxious. She did not understand why the young master was suddenly bleeding. Was he sick? "Young brother, are you sick?" On Gong Yimo's small bed, Kim Yoon smelled Gong Yimo's unique scent and sighed happily. "Yeah, I'm sick." It was a disease that could be seen but not touched. It was so itchy that it made people scratch their hearts and lungs, but they couldn't scratch the real thing. Gong Yimo was even more worried now. "I'll call Uncle Shun over for you." The Uncle Shun she was referring to was the Kim family's doctor. Kim Yoon hurriedly pulled her back. "It's not a serious illness. Moa, come over and sleep with me for a while." Gong Yimo's eyes widened. She struggled for a while. I haven't washed my clothes yet." Kim Yoon was originally acting like a wolf trying to seduce Little Red Riding Hood, but when he heard this, he became serious. "You still want to wash your clothes yourself?" His expression was unfriendly. The warmth from before had completely disappeared. Suddenly, his cold face was a little scary. Gong Yimo was silent for a moment before saying softly, "Anyway, I don't have many clothes." Kim Yoon suddenly realized how unfriendly the people around him were to Moa. He suppressed his anger and stroked Gong Yimo's head. "Throw the clothes to the servants now. If they don't wash them, come and tell me." Actually, he could have let the servants take the clothes themselves, or let the butler change the servants. However, these people had already cast a shadow in little Moa's heart. If he didn't let her face these people directly, she would be at a disadvantage in the future. Gong Yimo was a little conflicted when she heard this. Because she really didn't mind washing a few clothes, she couldn't disobey eldest young master's words. Sighing in her heart, Gong Yimo picked up the clothes and silently went out. She was very conflicted because she didn't know how long young master's sudden good mood would last. If she developed the habit of being lazy now, when eldest young master took everything away, would she be able to return to the way she was before? With this thought, she carried the clothes to the clothes room. There were 2 maids ironing the clothes. Usually, the auntie would collect the master's clothes for them after cleaning the room. Their job was to wash and iron the clothes by hand. When they suddenly saw Gong Yimo, the 2 maids were expressionless. Gong Yimo wasn't liked by the master, and eldest young master hated her even more. Although there was a sudden change today, they both thought that young master would change back soon. "What are you doing here?" This was young master's clothes room, and the clothes inside were very important. Usually, there were 5 maids in charge here, and no one was allowed to cause trouble. Gong Yimo hugged the clothes. Although she wasn't as tall as them, she wasn't timid. "Please help me wash the clothes." She thought for a moment and seriously added, "This is young master's idea." They couldn't tell that she had a talent for borrowing the power of others. Hearing this, the 2 maids were stunned for a moment, then they both laughed. One of the younger maids snorted. "He just treated you a little better, and you want to go to heaven?" What young master said. "If you're lazy, just say it. It's just a few clothes. Is it worth it to let others serve you the moment you're in power?" Another auntie, who was older than her, continued ironing her clothes as she said sarcastically, "I thought that a poor girl from the countryside would be more ambitious. I didn't expect her to be so unpresentable. Now, she's so cocky. If young master treated you a little better, I don't know what you'll do." Gong Yimo frowned, her face burning. She also felt that it was fine if she washed the clothes, but the other party humiliated her like this, which made her very uncomfortable. Moreover, this matter was their fault. They were originally invited to wash the clothes, so how could it be her fault for letting them wash the clothes? "It's really what young master said. Are you going to wash it or not?" Gong Yimo's childish female voice sounded. Her cold attitude made the little maid a little angry. "No. Didn't you wash it very well in the past? Now that you're in power, you're bullying people, right? Do you think we're easy to bully?" Her voice was very loud, making Gong Yimo a little afraid as she hugged the clothes tightly. She was used to being bullied, but deep down, she still refused to give in. "This is your job." The little maid impatiently put down the clothes in her hands and shouted angrily, "Are you done? I don't believe that if I don't wash your clothes, you'll be fired." "Very well, you're fired." Kim Yoon suddenly appeared, and his lungs were about to explode from anger. Why did all these people bully his Moa? Wasn't it obvious that he doted on her during dinner? Or were these people brainless? Chapter 801. When they saw Kim Yoon, the 2 of them subconsciously panicked. "Young master," Kim Yoon took Gong Yimo into his arms and lifted her up. He was 17 years old, but he was tall and big. Moa wasn't heavy either, so he felt strangely comfortable carrying her. The clothes in her arms were thrown to the ground by Kim Yoon. His cold gaze swept over the 2 women, and he suddenly felt that it wasn't a bad thing to make an example out of them. "You didn't hear it. You're fired. Get out." The butler heard the commotion and hurried over. When he heard the eldest young master's words, he naturally had to ask the 2 servants to leave. Why? The older one was scared silly, but the younger one was very unconvinced. When she saw the other servants coming over, she shouted loudly, "I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I be fired?" "You didn't do anything wrong." Kim Yoon carried Gong Yimo with one hand and patted her back with the other to comfort her. The cold glint in his eyes caused everyone present to tremble in fear. "I said before, she's my little sister. She's the young miss of the Jin family. As servants of the Jin family, you don't listen to the young miss. What's the use of keeping you?" His cold voice caused everyone to tremble. Then they were taken away by the butler. Even if they disagreed 1,000 times, what was the use? Was there anyone in the Jin family who dared to disobey the young master? Kim Yoon was very satisfied with the butler's efficiency. Seeing that this wasn't enough, he changed his expression and asked Gong Yimo, "Mo-er, who else bullied you here? Tell me, and I'll take revenge for you." Everyone fell silent. Some people looked at Gong Yimo uneasily, afraid that Gong Yimo would say what they did in the past. Every dog has its day. The little sparrow's sudden reversal caught them off guard. Gong Yimo witnessed the change in Kim Yoon's expression at close range. From his initial anger, to his current gentleness. Even if that anger was directed at others, she still felt that the impact was not small. She was a little scared, worried that one day, his terrible anger would fall on her. So she was stunned. Under Kim Yoon's somewhat forceful gaze, she slowly shook her head. Kim Yoon was a little puzzled. He originally wanted to use this opportunity to help Mo-er establish her prestige and make a good impression. Why did she reject it? But Mo-er was the most important. He didn't say anything and let those people go. There was still time. After that, Kim Yoon made a lot of changes. He asked the housekeeper to open up a separate cloakroom for Mo-er. The clothes would be delivered tomorrow. At that time, he could dress Mo-er up every day. He also asked the housekeeper to turn the study next to his room into Mo-er's bedroom. He even opened a door inside to connect the two rooms. After giving instructions, Kim Yoon carried Gong Yimo to his room. Gong Yimo was still young, so no one thought too much about it. Moreover, after the commotion just now, they still had some lingering fears. It was not easy to find a job that paid as good as the Jin families. They didn't want to offend the young master. At this time, Gong Yimo was curled up in the middle of the 3-meter big bed. The dark blue quilt set off her jade-white skin. She was small, but it made people's blood boil. With great difficulty, Jin Yoon suppressed the unspeakable desire and sat on the bed with the book in his hand. Gong Yimo didn't understand because the books that Kim Yoon brought were all hers. Mo-er's grades aren't good. The dark golden light softened his facial features. In addition, Kim Yoon, who was lying on the bed with her, was simply unbelievably gentle. He was like a different person from the young master who had just killed a chicken to warn the monkey. Gong Yimo held the books and nodded. She transferred from the countryside and couldn't keep up with the progress. In addition, she was bullied in school, and when she came back, she was bullied by the young master. Even if she was talented, it was difficult for her to catch up. But the young master was happy. His father's only request for him was to have good grades and knowledge, and to be able to take over the company in the future. Therefore, even if the young master was a hooligan, his father didn't care because the young master's grades were very good. Kim Yoon silently praised the original body, and then said softly to Gong Yimo, "How about I tutor you in the future?" He originally planned to hire a tutor, but after thinking about it, how could he bear to give up such a good opportunity to cultivate their relationship? Thus, the scene above was born. Gong Yimo was flattered. The young master actually wanted to tutor her. She nodded repeatedly, but then thought of something, and her little face became serious. "Will it be too troublesome for you?" Kim Yoon hurriedly touched her little face. "It's no trouble, no trouble. From tomorrow onwards, you will live next door. Come and find me at night, and I will help you with your homework." Gong Yimo nodded and couldn't help but smile. She was really happy this time. Her smile was undoubtedly Kim Yoon's greatest motivation. The two of them went straight to the main topic and started the tutoring. Kim Yoon looked at the questions in her hands, and the answers and analysis steps spontaneously appeared in his mind. However, he needed some time to understand it himself, so he taught very slowly at first. But gradually, he became more and more comfortable with it. Gong Yimo also listened very seriously. Time flew by, and soon it was very late. "That's it. Do you understand?" Kim Yoon asked softly, only to realize that Gong Yimo had already fallen asleep on the bed. His eyes revealed gentleness as he quietly looked at her for a while, then he put away the books and lay down beside her. Today was the most fulfilling and the happiest day of his life. He was able to hug her, kiss her, and even watch her sleep. This kind of happiness made him feel like he was about to fly. Once upon a time, he had crazily longed for this. Even in his dreams, he wished that he could go back to the beginning. He would definitely seize the opportunity and accompany her as she grew up. He would make the most important person by her side become him, and make her completely his. And all of this came true today. Kim Yoon suddenly felt a little afraid. He was afraid that when he woke up, he would go back to that cold palace, to a world where she didn't belong. It was really too scary. Kim Yoon couldn't help but reach out and hug Gong Yimo. Only then did he feel a little more at ease. Gong Yimo rubbed against his chest before finding a comfortable position to sleep. Her sleeping face was extremely cute. Kim Yoon couldn't help but lower his head to kiss her face and forehead, but it was as if he couldn't get enough of it. Actually, it wasn't that he didn't want to find another person. Everyone around him advised him to get married, and told him that every woman had their own good points, so he shouldn't only think about one person. He really tried his best to find someone to replace Moa, but it didn't work. He felt disgusted when other women got close to him. He couldn't do it. And now, he finally found someone to belong to. God, please let him stay in this world forever. Kim Yoon didn't dare to sleep. He silently looked at the little person in his arms until he couldn't take it anymore and fell into a deep sleep. This was probably the first time he slept so well in the past few decades. Chapter 802. The next day, when Kim Yoon woke up, his mind was a little groggy. He seemed to have had a dream. In the dream, he had gone to the world 1,000 years in the future and met little Moa. He was her brother who was not related to her by blood. What a beautiful dream. Why didn't Yoon Gui wake him up? It was so bright. He should have morning court by now. Suddenly, someone nudged him. Brother, get up and have breakfast. When Kim Yoon heard the voice, he opened his eyes abruptly. Then, he couldn't help but rub his eyes. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a dream. Seeing Kim Yoon suddenly staring at her, Gong Yimo was shocked. She stared at him blankly. She had woken up very early today. Looking at eldest young master who was just inches away from her, she thought for a long time and finally made a decision. No matter how long the eldest young master would treat her well, she should return the favor. Since he wanted to be a good brother, then she would learn to be a good sister. It wasn't that she didn't have any ulterior motives. Perhaps if she behaved well, eldest young master would continue to be abnormal. That way, her life would be much better. Kim Yoon couldn't help but grab her slender and fair wrist. That invasive gaze made Gong Yimo feel even more helpless. Did she do something wrong again because she was too pleased with herself? Eldest young master didn't seem happy. Moa? His sharp and intimidating gaze swept over her, as if he was trying to determine if she was real. Hearing that eldest young master still called her Moa, Gong Yimo heaved a sigh of relief. Although she didn't know why his gaze was so sharp, it was obviously the same as yesterday. She composed herself and said softly, "Brother, it's time for you to get up." Kim Yoon's heart started to pound. Moa in front of him had already freshened up and was wearing the milky white tutu dress that he had bought for her yesterday. Her seaweed-like black hair flowed down, accentuating her small face. However, her eyes were extraordinarily large. The way she called him brother was simply too adorable. He exerted force and little Moa cried out in surprise as he pressed her down. "Brother!" Kim Yoon directly sucked on her mouth. "Oh!" Gong Yimo widened her eyes. Why did her brother kiss her again? Kim Yoon kissed her lips eagerly. Only when her scent filled the tip of his nose did the intense uneasiness and impact gradually disappear. He had really arrived 1,000 years in the future, and the woman he loved was right beneath him. How blissful. Every day felt like a gift. So he kissed her very sincerely. On the big dark blue bed, a big boy wearing beige pajamas was pressing down on a little girl and kissing her. There was an indescribable charm and gentleness. After the kiss, Kim Yoon released her slightly swollen lips. His long eyelashes drooped, and he revealed a very gentle smile. "Good morning, Moa." Gong Yimo's little face turned completely red. After a peaceful meal, the two of them went to school together. Their relationship was so good that it was as if they had known each other for many years. God knows how much the young master hated this burden in the past. Gong Yimo felt as if she was in a dream. Whether it was the stunned gazes of her classmates or the words of jealousy, she didn't seem to feel it. During class, she was still in a daze. She also didn't notice the obscure gazes of her classmates. The new teacher was a more gentle old teacher. The previous teacher was indeed fired. No matter what connections they used, it was useless. Moreover, after the commotion in the cafeteria, the students were a little afraid of Kim Yoon. Naturally, they didn't dare to get close to Gong Yimo, even if she was as beautiful as a little princess. She was invisibly isolated, but it was much better than before. After all, she was an existence that was bullied by her classmates. If only the young master could always be like this. Gong Yimo held her cheeks as she thought. Her appearance was extremely sweet. When she came out, Kim Yoon pulled her seaweed-like hair into a high ponytail. Coupled with the milky white princess dress, she was simply too beautiful. Moreover, Kim Yoon said that she could wear the new school uniform at night. Gong Yimo thought of this and smiled slightly. The class monitor sitting next to her felt his heart beating rapidly. However, he was only 13 years old and didn't understand why his heart was moved. He only felt that Gong Yimo was really beautiful. He really wanted to be her deskmate. Chapter 803. Days passed, and Gong Yimo's mother and stepfather came back. After a week of getting along with each other, Gong Yimo and Kim Yoon got along very well. They were like siblings. One day, when both of them came home from school, they were talking and laughing when they saw their parents in the living room. Kim Yoon's face immediately became cold. Actually, he was very afraid of his father. But who was Kim Yoon? He had been an emperor for decades. His father was nothing compared to him. Father. But he still had to do what he had to do. Kim Yoon looked at Shu Ah-yu and said, "Auntie." "Yes." Shu Ah-yu quickly responded. This was the first time that Jin Qingyang looked at her in the eyes. Gong Yimo also called him uncle obediently. Jin Shen looked at Gong Yimo and then looked at his son. Although he did not discipline his son well, it was not that he did not want to. He just did not have the time. He did not expect his son to be so sensible. Thinking of the situation reported by the butler, his son not only did not go out to cause trouble, but also went to school obediently every day. The teacher said that he had become much more polite, and all this was because of this little girl. Jin Shen did not have any feelings for Gong Yimo. Anyway, the Jin family was a big family. It was not a big deal to raise a girl and pay for her dowry. But if this girl could lead his son to the right path, he did not mind treating her better. So, he nodded at Gong Yimo and then asked Kim Yoon some questions. For example, why did he change his name? Gong Yimo was pulled aside by Shu Ah-yu. Although she heard that Jin Qingyang was treating her daughter better, she was still worried. So, she whispered to her daughter, "Moa, is young master really good to you recently?" Gong Yimo nodded without hesitation. There was no doubt about it. After all, everyone in the Jin family knew how good Jin Qingyang was to her. Shu Ah-yu looked at her new daughter and didn't know if she was relieved or worried. In the end, she touched her daughter's head and comforted herself by thinking, "My daughter is so cute, it's normal for young master to like her." After the family of four had dinner together for the first time, Kim Yoon brought Gong Yimo upstairs. In the end, these people had nothing to do with him, but as long as they didn't get in the way, he would still fulfill his responsibility as a son. Gong Yimo had always been a little afraid of Jin Shen, so she didn't eat anything just now. As soon as they returned to the room, Kim Yoon carried Gong Yimo through the secret door between the two rooms. He took out a small cake from the fridge and gave it to her. "Thank you, brother." Gong Yimo happily received it. Kim Yoon smiled and patted her head. Then, he carried her to watch TV. He tried to receive all kinds of information from this world while hugging Gong Yimo, not wanting her to leave. Gong Yimo was also very obedient. She would feed Kim Yoon with every bite she took. The two of them were too close, but Gong Yimo didn't notice it. She only thought that their relationship was better than other siblings. Kim Yoon watched for a while and then stared at little Moa in his arms. He already knew that in this world, people became adults at 16 years old. In the past, it was 18 years old. However, women usually only fully developed at 18 years old. In his previous world, it was wrong to marry at 12 or 13 years old. So, he decided to wait. There were still 6 years until Moa turned 18 years old. If she was with him every day, it wouldn't be so difficult. Gong Yimo saw him staring at her and fed him a spoonful of cake. "Brother, is it good?" Kim Yoon basically didn't taste it because he was completely focused on Gong Yimo. He lowered his head and licked her lips. It's very good. Brother. Gong Yimo pouted slightly. Recently, they had been kissing a lot, but Gong Yimo felt that it wasn't good to do it too often, so she would sometimes stop it. Kim Yoon raised his eyebrows and smiled. Under his beautiful big eyes was an exquisite cinnabar mole. "Moa doesn't like it." Gong Yimo was wrapped in Kim Yoon's arms. She held the cake and said in a muffled voice, "No, it's just that. You kissed me too much." Her little face blushed and she lowered her head. She was embarrassed. Kim Yoon saw her long eyelashes fluttering as she lowered her eyes. That fluttering arc seemed to be tickling his heart. He swallowed with difficulty and decided to take back what he had said earlier. 6 years was really too difficult to endure. A sense of danger made Gong Yimo's scalp tingle. She looked up and realized that her brother was looking at her like that again. Every time he looked at her like that, she felt like she was being stripped naked. She was a little scared, so she pulled Kim Yoon's sleeve. "Brother, you should help me with my revision." Kim Yoon finally broke free from that crazy desire and looked at her deeply. "Okay, revision." Humans were indeed greedy. In the past, he felt that if he could be with Moa every day, he would be willing to give up half of his life. But now that they were together, he felt that every day was so difficult because he had a deeper desire that he didn't even dare to think about in the past. When he carried Gong Yimo to the study table, Kim Yoon's gaze swept over the big bed and his heart couldn't help but tremble. He really didn't know how much longer he could endure. The next day, Kim Yoon went to Gong Yimo's class to pick her up after school. Kim Yoon was about to take the college entrance exam, so he cherished every day. But he didn't expect that his baby, who had been obediently waiting for him, wasn't there. He randomly grabbed a boy and asked. The boy revealed a strange expression. Previously, a senior said that you had something to do and left first and asked her to send classmate Gong. Isn't that the case? Kim Yoon was shocked. He quickly grabbed him and asked, "I've never said such a thing. Who was that person? What did she look like?" The boy's expression also became serious. "She's quite good-looking. Short hair and a mole on her chin." Before he could finish speaking, Kim Yoon ran out. He already knew who it was. Because the school had a rule that junior high school students weren't allowed to bring their phones, Moa didn't bring hers. However, the person who kidnapped her had a phone, but he didn't know the number because he had thrown away his original phone. The door to the principal's office was kicked open by Jin Yoon. The principal looked at Jin Yoon, who was striding towards him in confusion. His legs trembled. He thought that this young master who had finally behaved himself for a period of time was going to beat him up. Kim Yoon walked up to the principal and tried his best to calm himself down so that he wouldn't grab him by the collar. "My sister is missing. Principal, please send people to search the school. Also, I want Lee Wire's number. Now." The principal heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that he wasn't looking for trouble. Then, he panicked when he heard that the young master's precious stepsister was missing. "Wait, I'll send people to look for her." Chapter 804. Only then did Kim Yoon shift his terrifying gaze away from the principal. The principal felt the tension in the air lessen as he spoke on the phone while glancing at Kim Yoon's expression. Although the young master had been well-behaved recently, he was much scarier when he was angry. Just now, he felt as if he was being strangled by the other party. Young people nowadays were really something. "Student Jin, I got it. Lee Wire's number is..." Kim Yoon quickly noted it down and spoke on the phone, "If your people find my sister, call me immediately." Before he could finish speaking, he had already left. The principal was in a miserable state. Why did he feel that he was too obedient? Lee Wire's phone could not be reached. In the school's storeroom, Lee Wire and a few other girls surrounded Gong Yimo and forced her into a corner. The other 3 were also classmates or juniors who had a good relationship with the young master. Recently, without exception, they were all expelled by the young master and lost a lot of benefits. They could not vent their anger on the young master, so they could only look for Gong Yimo. If Gong Yimo knew what was good for her, she would let them beat her up and vent their anger, but if she dared to complain, they would teach her a lesson in the future. Anyway, even if the young master found out, it would not matter. In the past, when the young master treated a female classmate well and that female classmate was taught a lesson, the young master did not react at all. He even enjoyed the other girl's crazy actions for him. It would be the same this time. Gong Yimo was surrounded. Her expression was tense, but she did not panic. She used her advantage to threaten them. If you do this, I will tell my brother. My brother said before that anyone who bullies me will not have a good ending. Gong Yimo's words were very effective. The other girls looked at Li Wire. After all, she was the one who started this. Li Wire laughed arrogantly. You really have the cheek to say that. The young master was just a little nicer to you and you can't tell east from west. You are just a plaything. Do you think the young master will stand up for you? You think too highly of yourself. Her words gave the other girls some confidence. The young master was famous for being fond of the new and despising the old. Moreover, he had never been involved in disputes between women, so there was nothing to worry about. Thinking of this, they all looked at Gong Yimo with hostility. Gong Yimo was a little scared when they stared at her. After all, they were a few years older than her, and she couldn't beat them. Have you really thought it through? Gong Yimo forced herself to calm down. Young master is very interested in me right now. Do you still remember the incident where my teacher was expelled? It's not wise to touch me now. Gong Yimo's words were also very reasonable. Now was the time when he liked her. Perhaps it would be the same as the last time. Young master would get angry again because of a beauty. One of the girls was scared. Why don't we wait a few days before looking for this girl? Anyway, young master won't like her for long. However, Li Wire disagreed. No. Next time, she'll be prepared. Will she still be tricked by us? Last time at the stylist shop, Gong Yimo made her lose so much face. Today, she must take revenge. Thinking of this, her eyes flashed with resentment. How about this? We'll take off her clothes and take nude photos. If she dares to say anything, we'll post it online. Let's see if she still dares to complain. This time, Gong Yimo was really a little panicked. However, the other girls felt that this was a good idea and nodded. That's right. Let's see if this girl is shameless. Li Wire saw Gong Yimo take a step back in fear and laughed. Scared? Bitch, you guys go. First, take off her clothes, take photos, then beat her up. She's from the countryside, so what right does she have to wear good clothes? When the other girls heard this, they thought that if it wasn't for Gong Yimo, young master wouldn't have cut off their branded clothes and bags. Immediately, a few of them walked towards Gong Yimo. Seeing that Gong Yimo was resisting with all her might, the 4 girls surrounded her and forcefully pulled off Gong Yimo's clothes. Li Wire even took the opportunity to pinch Gong Yimo a few times. Let go of me. What you're doing is illegal, Gong Yimo said angrily as she struggled. Li Wire directly tore her clothes apart, revealing her newly developed breasts and sneered. Then go and expose us. When the time comes, we'll post your nude photos on the school's website. Let's see if you still have the face to live. As she said this, she took out her phone and prepared to take photos. However, she realized that her phone had more than 10 missed calls. She looked at Gong Yimo, who was struggling with all her might. This couldn't be young master calling, right? Then, she thought that it was impossible. That was why they took action. How could young master's actions be so fast? It wasn't like she was his biological sister, so she opened her camera and prepared to take photos. As she took photos, she said, "Hurry up and tear off your skirt too." No. You can't do this. Gong Yimo widened her eyes. Her resistance was so strong that the 3 girls couldn't hold her down. One of the girls was so angry that she slapped Gong Yimo. Gong Yimo wasn't someone to be trifled with. Her small hand fiercely scratched her face, leaving 3 bloody marks. That girl screamed in pain, Then her eyes turned fierce. "I'll kill you, you slut." As she said this, she directly pounced over and grabbed Gong Yimo's long hair and pulled it back. Gong Yimo was in pain and covered her head with both hands. At this moment, her skirt was also torn off. No, she didn't want to be photographed naked. However, the other party was very evil and forcefully held her down, not allowing her to struggle. They didn't know that this was illegal. They only wanted to vent their anger and prevent the other party from spreading the news. Gong Yimo was only left with her torn shirt and underwear. Her hand was grabbed and forced to face the camera. Her long hair was scattered and the corners of her eyes were red. "You will be fired for doing this," one of the girls said proudly. "My family has connections. What's there to be afraid of?" Li Wire took out her phone to take photos of Gong Yimo and said maliciously, "I already said that I want to take nude photos. Strip her clean. Let's see if she dares to be disobedient in the future." The girls laughed and reached out to tear off Gong Yimo's shirt and underwear. Gong Yimo's hand was grabbed and she found an opportunity to bite one of the girls' hand. "Ah, wretched girl, let go of me." Gong Yimo refused to let go. When she was finally pulled away, her hand was already bleeding. "Damn it. I'm going to post your photos on the internet right now." Before she could finish speaking, the door was suddenly kicked open, causing them to panic instantly. Kim Yoon was the first to rush in. When he saw Gong Yimo's appearance, his pupils shrank. "No one is allowed to come in." His voice made the security guards and others behind him subconsciously wait outside the door. When the girls saw that Kim Yoon had actually found this place, they were so frightened that their faces turned pale and they hurriedly shrank to the side. Without anyone supporting her, Gong Yimo fell limply to the ground. However, Kim Yoon caught her. His hands trembled slightly and his heart trembled even more. "Sorry, I'm late." Chapter 805. Gong Yimo clutched his clothes tightly. Her big red eyes stared at Kim Yoon. Kim Yoon's heart ached. He thought that she was angry that he came late, so he hugged her tightly. "Moa, don't be afraid. There won't be a next time." Feeling his body temperature, Gong Yimo's tense body relaxed instantly. "Brother. I knew you would come." She buried her head in Kim Yoon's shoulder and said softly. They had not known each other for long, but she felt that the young master would definitely come to save her. Definitely. Luckily, he really came. Kim Yoon's heart instantly warmed up. Moa did not blame him. That was great. But when he looked at Li Wire and the others, he was not so friendly. He could not control his anger, especially when he saw that Moa's clothes were almost torn off. At that moment, he wanted to kill these people. But this was a lawful society. He could not do that. Kim Yoon lowered his eyes. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Even if he could not do it openly, he could do it secretly. The girls were already scared stiff. Especially Kim Yoon's gaze, it made them unable to breathe. But they also realized that if they did not do something now, the young master would not let them off in such an angry situation. So Li Wire braced herself and went forward. Her eyes instantly turned red. This time, she was really scared. "Brother Jin, we only did it because we cared too much about you. Sorry, we did something wrong in a moment of impulse." Her voice stopped abruptly, because Jin Yoon glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. That cold gaze made her freeze on the spot, stopping a meter away from them. Kim Yoon was not interested in talking to them. He took off his shirt and covered Gong Yimo's body. Gong Yimo was obediently nestled in his arms the whole time. Finally, he carried her up. That kind of cold attitude made the girls feel that something was wrong. "Come in." As soon as he finished speaking, the principal walked in with his men. At first, he didn't know what had happened, but when he saw the clothes and phone on the floor, as well as Gong Yimo, who was wrapped in the young master's clothes, he understood what had happened. His back was drenched in cold sweat. This time, the eldest young master would not let this matter rest. Kim Yoon looked at the principal coldly. "I've always thought that Platinum Academy is the best high school in Sea City, and that the people who come here are either rich or noble. But now that such a thing has happened, it's obvious that it's the fault of poor management." His voice was very calm, as if he was narrating a fact, but it made the principal panic. The Jin family had the most shares in this private aristocratic school. If the Jin family wanted to remove him from his position, it would be a simple matter. "Classmate Jin, don't worry, I will handle this matter well." The principal hurriedly took a few steps forward and declared, "What happened today was definitely an accident. I'll give you a satisfactory answer. Student Jin, I hope you'll give me a chance." Opportunity? Kim Yoon couldn't be bothered to argue with them. He strode out. "Okay, I'll wait for your result." Although he didn't say anything harsh, the threat between the lines and the surging ruthlessness on his body made the principal understand that if he didn't punish them severely, the fire would burn him down. At the thought of this, he looked at the frightened girls angrily. Really, if they had known this would happen, why did they do it in the first place? Now, they had to bear all the consequences. Kim Yoon carried Gong Yimo and quickly got into the car. He guessed that the principal would expel those girls. However, they had done such a terrible thing. How could he be appeased by just expelling them? Therefore, he made a call. During this time, Gong Yimo had been obedient. However, when she heard the eldest young master's request to make those girls unable to study in Sea City, she felt that it was a little too much. However, when she thought about how they wanted to take nude photos and do illegal things, she didn't say anything about it. She had used a lot of strength just now. Now that she was nestled in Kim Yoon's arms, she was like a doll that had lost its soul. There was an indescribable dispiritedness. After Kim Yoon dealt with those people, he couldn't help but look at the little person in his arms. Seeing that her face was pale, he took off her clothes and saw that there were some bruises on her body. He frowned and said, "Moa, let's go to the hospital, okay?" Gong Yimo heard this and quickly shook her head. "Don't make Mom worry. I'm fine. It's just some bruises. I'll be fine after applying some medicine." "But, brother," Gong Yimo shrank into his arms and hugged him tightly. "It doesn't hurt anymore. Brother, let me hug you." Kim Yoon couldn't help but hug her back. This was the first time that Gong Yimo had taken the initiative. However, he wasn't happy because she was afraid. He didn't protect her well. "I'm sorry." Kim Yoon stroked her hair and gently patted her back. "This time, brother didn't do a good job. Brother promises that there won't be a next time." "It's okay." Gong Yimo's voice was a bit weak. She rubbed against Kim Yoon's neck and was extremely obedient. "In the past, when I was bullied, no one came to help me." Her voice had a trace of grievance, which made Kim Yoon's heart ache even more. "But this time, I knew that brother would come to save me." Her voice changed and there was a bit of joy. "Brother really came. I'm so happy." Kim Yoon couldn't help but hug her tightly. What an obedient child. Not only did she not blame him, she even remembered his good deeds. Brother still didn't do enough. He was very ashamed. If only he was still the emperor, he wouldn't be so passive. Gong Yimo said a little embarrassedly. "Brother has already done very well." She raised her head. Her eyes had already regained their vigor. They were bright and close. "I like the current brother." Kim Yoon's heart trembled. He couldn't help but grab Gong Yimo, who was half kneeling in his arms, and carefully asked, "What did you just say?" Gong Yimo secretly smiled, then leaned forward and kissed his face. "I said, I like brother. Moa." Kim Yoon hugged Gong Yimo tightly again. "Brother also likes Moa. I like you very, very much." This kind of like was the same, but also different. Because there was a partition, without pressing the switch, the driver in front could not hear the sound behind, let alone see the situation behind. If he knew, perhaps he would only wonder when the young master had such a good relationship with this little burden. After being hugged by Kim Yoon for a while, Gong Yimo felt that Kim Yoon's body temperature was very high. She felt a little hot and couldn't help but move. However, Kim Yoon suddenly raised his head and stared at her. Gong Yimo sighed inwardly. Brother was using that terrifying gaze to stare at her again. Every time, she would feel her whole body tense up. Chapter 806. Brother. Gong Yimo tilted her head and furrowed her brows. "Every time you look at me like that, it's so scary." Kim Yoon finally broke free from some kind of impulse. He reached out to trace Gong Yimo's face and asked hoarsely, "How scary?" Gong Yimo thought carefully and said seriously, "It's like you're thinking about how to eat me up." Kim Yoon couldn't help but laugh. How could his little Moa be so cute? But she was right. He really wanted to eat her up every minute and every second. He had been hungry for too long. But he still couldn't. She was still too young. He didn't want to hurt her, so he could only bear with it. Gong Yimo felt Kim Yoon's sorrowful mood and couldn't help but rub his brows. "Brother, are you unhappy about something? Or are you thinking about what just happened?" "I'm fine." Kim Yoon revealed a gentle smile and stroked her hair. He suddenly thought of the misery of waiting for a lifetime. But now, it wouldn't happen anymore. Although he was still waiting, he was willing to endure it. No, brother isn't unhappy. With Moa around, brother is happy every day. With brother around, no one will bully you anymore. Gong Yimo revealed a sweet smile and said, "Brother is the best." The two chatted for a while before reaching home. Since the two elders at home weren't around, Kim Yoon carefully applied medicine for Gong Yimo and coaxed her to sleep. Looking at Gong Yimo's peaceful sleeping face, his heart was filled with sweetness. Just looking at her made him feel like he had been with her for a long time. This was great. Time passed quietly, and soon, a month had passed. In this month, everyone witnessed how well eldest young master treated Gong Yimo. Those who were looking for trouble in the past didn't dare to do so now. Everyone knew that those who bullied Gong Yimo back then, no school dared to accept them, causing them to have to leave their homes and go somewhere else. Gong Yimo had never felt so comfortable before. There were no relatives to abuse her, no classmates to bully her, and her grades were slowly improving. She even had a good brother. Was the god of luck starting to favor her? In the afternoon, seeing that Kim Yoon hadn't appeared, Gong Yimo got up and prepared to go to the high school to call her brother for lunch. During this period, the entire grade 12 class 1 knew that eldest young master had a cute sister. So every time Gong Yimo came to find Kim Yoon would receive many envious and jealous looks. Some shameless people even ran up to Kim Yoon and called him brother-in-law. Naturally, Jin Yoon secretly dealt with him. Only then did they know that eldest young master had a sister complex. However, it was obviously different today. The entire classroom was empty except for Kim Yoon and a girl. Gong Yimo stood at the door and was slightly stunned. She knew that girl. She was the girl that her brother liked, but this girl didn't like her brother. She was the elder sister of the Shu family, Shu Wen. At this moment, the two of them didn't notice her. The beautiful girl, Shu Wen, blocked Kim Yoon's path and said disdainfully, "Kim Yoon, if you're a man, go and break off the engagement. What era are we in now? We don't play with prearranged marriages." Kim Yoon frowned. He felt that his predecessor had really left him a lot of trouble. "I've changed my name. I'm Kim Yoon. As for the marriage you mentioned, I'll get my dad to break it tonight. Goodbye." Shu Wen's eyes widened. She thought that Kim Yoon would struggle a little. Previously, Kim Yoon had pestered her very tightly and forced her to transfer schools before he restrained himself. But now, she had no choice but to settle this marriage. Otherwise, they would have to hold an engagement party when she was 18. So, she transferred schools today to clarify things with him. She didn't expect him to have such an attitude. It was as if she was some kind of scourge. "Is there anything else?" Kim Yoon saw that Shu Wen still didn't move aside and was a little anxious. What if Moa got hungry after waiting for so long? Shu Wen bit her lower lip and said angrily, "Don't think that I'll be soft-hearted if you do this. I'm definitely breaking off this engagement. If you don't go back today, I'll get my dad to come over in a few days." Actually, if she had a way to break off the engagement, she wouldn't have to do this. The Kim family had a big business and Kim Yoon was the only son. Her dad couldn't bear to part with this marriage. Kim Yoon finally looked at her. Recently, he had dyed his hair back. Some of the long strands of hair hung in front of his forehead, covering his overly sharp eyebrows. Under his pair of sparkling eyes, the cinnabar mole was particularly eye-catching. He was becoming more and more similar to the Kim Yoon from her previous life, whether it was in appearance or personality. In her previous life, he was the world's #1 beauty. When he looked at people, he was naturally somewhat bewitching. So, when Shu Wen wanted to say something, she was stunned by his gaze. How could there be such a good-looking person? But no matter how good-looking he was, it couldn't hide the fact that he had a bad personality. She said loudly, "You can't force a melon to be sweet. Young master, please let me go." Kim Yoon couldn't help but smile. At that moment, all the decorations became the background. Shu Wen could hear her heart beating excessively. "Okay, I'll let you go. But please, don't appear in front of me again." As he said that, he gently pushed her away. Then, he saw Gong Yimo standing at the door. His eyes instantly became gentle. "Have you been waiting for a long time?" Gong Yimo glanced at the pale Shu Wen and shook her head. Kim Yoon didn't care about her. He directly pulled Gong Yimo to eat. In the afternoon, the school would hold an exhibition, so he could spend the whole afternoon with Moa. Shu Wen didn't know why, but when she saw Kim Yoon leave just like that, she felt uncomfortable. She thought that maybe it was because he was too good-looking. He was just rotten on the inside. In the afternoon, in the cool autumn weather, Kim Yoon held Gong Yimo's hand as they walked in the school. It was like a beautiful scenery. On this day, students could show off their talents to their heart's content. This was the only school in High City that had such a festival. It was to show off their wealth to outsiders. Some students brought a lot of good things to school in order to compete. There was no lack of antiques. The school even invited experts to appraise them and allowed them to buy and sell them. Every time they heard the results of the appraisal experts, some of the ordinary students would exclaim in surprise. Some of them were furious when they were found to be fake. Kim Yoon and Gong Yimo just looked at them. After all, in Kim Yoon's eyes, the antiques that these people brought were just so. He had been an emperor for decades and had enjoyed the most exquisite life. His food, clothes, and jewelry were all the best in the world. However, Gong Yimo liked it very much. She held Kim Yoon's hand and looked around. She was most interested in the exquisitely designed handicrafts. It seemed that no matter how she changed, she was still her. Kim Yoon held her hand and strolled around. When he saw something that she liked, he would spend a lot of money to buy it. Everyone was envious and jealous behind them. They also wanted a brother like him. Chapter 807. At this moment, Gong Yimo suddenly saw a very exquisitely made jade hairpin. The texture and winding were very exquisite, and the color was gorgeous. It was so blue that it was eye-catching. Seeing that Gong Yimo liked it, Kim Yoon waved his hand and was about to buy it. At this moment, Shu Wen also took a fancy to the hairpin. It was her grandmother's birthday soon, and this kind of beautiful antique would please her the most. Therefore, she snatched the hairpin without saying a word. Gong Yimo grabbed nothing. When she saw that it was Shu Wen, she pursed her lips and did not say anything. Shu Wen looked at Gong Yimo with some pride. It seemed that this child of the Kim family knew very well that she could not compare to her in Kim Yoon's heart. Actually, Shu Wen had been standing by the side for a long time. When she saw that Kim Yoon was so nice and gentle to Gong Yimo, she suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. That was why this scene happened. "This hairpin is not bad. How much is it?" "I'll buy it." The person selling the hairpin happened to be Gong Yimo's classmate, the class monitor, Yuan Hao. Initially, he wanted to give it to her when he saw that Gong Yimo liked it. However, he was stopped halfway and was a little put in a spot. Kim Yoon was also unhappy. Why was it this woman again? We saw it first. Shu Wen raised her eyebrows. "Why? Did you pay?" Gong Yimo shook her head. "It's okay, brother. Let's take a look." When Kim Yoon heard this, he narrowed his eyes and glanced at Shu Wen before leaving with Gong Yimo. Gong Yimo retreated so quickly, which made Shu Wen feel very bored. When she passed by Gong Yimo, she pretended to inadvertently stretch out her leg. In the end, Gong Yimo tripped and fell forward. Kim Yoon caught her in time, but she knocked into a calligraphy and painting stall. The ink spilled out and spilled on an exhibition. The stall owner shouted, "My calligraphy!" He was stunned. This is the authentic work of Master Liu of the Ming dynasty. Kim Yoon helped Gong Yimo to stand properly. Then, he glanced at the calligraphy and said, "How much is it? I'll pay for it." However, he did not expect the other party to be so persistent. "This is my grandfather's favorite calligraphy. You can't just pay for it." As he spoke, he cried again. "It's over. If Grandpa finds out that I took his treasure and ruined it, he'll kill me." Gong Yimo saw that the other party was pitiful. She tugged at Yoon's sleeve. "Otherwise, he'll be beaten." The 15-year-old boy cried out, "How is it the same? This is the only one. You're dead." Kim Yoon saw Gong Yimo frowning and patted her head. "It's okay. Watch me." As he spoke, he took a step forward and looked at the so-called only one. These were all children. Few of them would protect the good things they took out. For example, calligraphy and paintings were placed directly on the table. Kim Yoon reached out to touch it and frowned. At this moment, the fiery youth said angrily, "Don't touch it. Haven't you harmed me enough?" Kim Yoon retracted his hand and glanced at him. "This is fake." "Bullshit." The youth swore and raised his thick eyebrows. "Don't think that you can speak without thinking just because you're the young master of the Jin family. I, Zhao Ji, am not afraid of you." At this moment, the surrounding people also gathered around, including the teacher and the appraisal master. Once they saw that it was the young master, the teacher immediately focused 120% of his attention. "What's wrong?" Zhao Ji saw that someone had come and quickly said, "Teacher, please be the judge. My calligraphy and painting, the appraisal master that my family hired said that it was a treasure. In the end, it was destroyed by him and he even said that it was fake." Gong Yimo quickly said, "We're willing to pay. Bah, who wants money? I want you to take out the exact same thing." At this moment, the appraisal master saw that such a good piece of calligraphy was destroyed. He looked at it with heartache and said, "This is the real thing. It's not bad." Me. Zhao Ji heard this and looked at Kim Yoon with his nose in the air. Kim Yoon shook his head. In the original body's memory, he had seen this Master Liu's authentic work. As for Kim Yoon himself, calligraphy was the most basic skill. Naturally, he could see the difference between the two. He said softly, "This piece of calligraphy is an imitation. I don't know the year, but it's definitely not the work of the Ming dynasty master. It's very likely that it's an ancient imitation. However, it's still considered an antique." "What makes you say that? Where's the evidence?" Zhao Ji was overbearing. Kim Yoon pointed at a few places according to his memory. "I've seen the authentic work before. That master had a very small detail, and that was when he wrote towards the end, the stroke would always be thinner than before. Moreover, the highlight of his calligraphy was that it was free and easy. However, this piece of calligraphy has the form, but the meaning is 1,000 times worse." They didn't really understand what Kim Yoon was talking about. Moreover, they were all modern people. How many of them could truly understand the meaning? "What makes you say that? What do you mean by meaning? You're talking as if you're very knowledgeable." Kim Yoon raised his eyebrows slightly. "Let's not talk about other things. Calligraphy and painting come naturally to me." Zhao Ji was angered by Kim Yoon's shameless boasting. Young Master Jin was such a bastard. Just because his grades were good, his family kept praising him. Today, he had to make him lose face. He pushed the inkstone in front of the table. "Who doesn't know how to boast? If you have the guts, do it for real." Gong Yimo looked at Kim Yoon a little worriedly because young master didn't know calligraphy. Kim Yoon suddenly smiled at her. "Moa, watch carefully." As he said that, he actually picked up the brush. Moreover, his posture and movements were as if he had held it 1,000 times. The surrounding students all gathered around. This was the first time they had seen young master write with a brush. It was really rare. That teacher and the appraisal master also looked at each other. The appraisal master was very knowledgeable about calligraphy and painting. Looking at the other party's starting hand, he really had practiced before. Kim Yoon closed his eyes and then moved. At that moment, it was as if he had changed into another person. His eyes were focused and the brush moved like a dragon. He wrote very quickly. It was a kind of proficiency that made people gasp in amazement. The surrounding people exclaimed because not only did the other party write quickly, he also wrote very well. Very quickly, the appraisal master realized that what the other party had written was none other than the content of the destroyed painting. And what was strange was that his handwriting was exactly the same as the original. Was he copying everyone's handwriting on the spot? Kim Yoon's heart emptied and felt rather relaxed. He was once very poor in learning and felt rather inferior. But later on, in order to be a good emperor, he studied hard and practiced hard. In the end, he could be said to be proficient in the 4 arts. Perhaps, he did this so that he wouldn't have so much time to think about someone. Thinking of this, he suddenly stopped writing and glanced at Gong Yimo. Only Gong Yimo could understand the gentleness and tenderness in his eyes. Her heart was beating very quickly. She felt that something was different. Only when he finished writing the last stroke did the crowd exclaim in amazement. There was no other reason. What he wrote was exactly the same as the destroyed painting. Although it was the same, there were slight differences. They were laymen who didn't understand calligraphy and painting. They only felt that Kim Yoon's handwriting seemed to have come alive. It was exceptionally elegant. In comparison, they actually felt that the meticulously framed calligraphy was far inferior to Kim Yoon's handwriting. It was clearly the same. Could it be that this was the so-called artistic conception? Shu Wen was also stunned by this scene. The way Kim Yoon wrote just now was like a noble young master in a scroll. He was calm and indifferent. That noble aura came from his bones. It was filled with years of experience that made people unable to take their eyes off him. Chapter 808. While the crowd was still in a daze, Kim Yoon smiled and wrote another piece of calligraphy. It was the exact same content, but this time, he used his own handwriting. His handwriting was delicate and elegant, but one could see the strength behind it. The domineering aura of a monarch passed through the paper and hit one in the face. The entire piece of calligraphy was written in one go, and the contrast was very obvious. Laymen didn't understand so much. They only felt that Kim Yoon's copy was better than the one Zhao Ji brought. Later on, Kim Yoon changed his handwriting, but it was better than the copy. Because the content was exactly the same, it was obvious who was better. Kim Yoon put down his pen and smiled. His noble temperament was undoubtedly enhanced by this smile. His half-squinted eyes and the glistening cinnabar mole made the hearts of the surrounding girls beat faster. Now, do you still think that yours is authentic? Kim Yoon took out a business card from his wallet and placed it on the table. This is old Shue's phone number. He's a famous appraisal master in and out of the country. You can find him to appraise it. If he says it's authentic, I'll compensate you with an identical authentic one. If he says it's fake, I'll pay you how much it's worth. Zhao Ji was already stunned by Kim Yoon's move. He had seen many people practice calligraphy, and his grandfather also practiced calligraphy. However, it was the first time he saw someone like Kim Yoon, who was proficient with the brush and wrote like the wind. Not to mention, when the other party wrote, his temperament was like moving clouds and flowing water, as well as his skill in penetrating the paper. He was influenced and naturally knew that Kim Yoon's handwriting was much better than the one he brought. Therefore, he rolled his eyes and quickly said, "Well, I'm not a calculative person. How about this? These 2 pieces of calligraphy belong to me. Consider it compensation for my loss," he said proudly, but his hand quickly covered the words. With this, his grandfather would definitely not hit him. Kim Yoon smiled indifferently and left with Gong Yimo's hand. This scene made Shu Wen unable to believe her eyes. Back then, when young master pestered her, she was in her first year of high school. After that, she transferred to another school. She only transferred today. Could a person really change so much in 2 years? Not only in terms of appearance, but also in terms of bearing, he had become unapproachable. She held the hairpin in her hand and frowned as if she was thinking about something. At this moment, Yuan Hao asked, "Senior, do you still want this?" At this moment, how could Shu Wen be in the mood to think about anything else? She quickly put down the hairpin and chased after Kim Yoon. Yuan Hao frowned, but he still put the hairpin away. The Jin family made their fortune in jewelry and jade, while the Yuan family made their fortune in antiques. Since his deskmate liked this hairpin, he would give it to her. Gong Yimo looked at Kim Yoon with admiration. Big brother, how are you so powerful? In fact, when Kim Yoon was writing, she did not look at the words at all. Instead, she was attracted to Kim Yoon. She was probably not alone because Kim Yoon's writing was really beautiful. That kind of settled elegance was a charm that could not be seen in modern society. Kim Yoon received Gong Yimo's admiring gaze and felt very sweet in his heart. Moa really thinks that I'm powerful. Seeing Gong Yimo nod without hesitation, he felt his vanity explode. In the past, when he met Moa, it was always Moa who helped him. Although he had a talent for business and was good at singing and dancing, he knew very little about other things. Because of this, he felt inferior. Now, he was very good. He had learned a lot. Even in his dreams, he hoped that one day, he could become very powerful and protect her when she was weak. In the past, this was just a dream, but now, it had come true. He didn't need her to be strong. He just wanted to love her and pamper her. It was all for the sake of her. Pinching Gong Yimo's face, Kim Yoon slightly raised his eyebrows and could only say, "Big brother can be even more powerful. Do you want to see?" "Yes." Gong Yimo looked up at him with wide eyes. That kind of sparkling eyes made Kim Yoon feel extremely proud. He was extremely glad that he had learned a lot later on and was able to perform in front of his beloved woman to make her smile. At a glance, he saw a classmate showing off his talent. There were many musical instruments beside him, and he was playing the flute. When Kim Yoon walked over, he was a little surprised. When he heard that Kim Yoon was here to borrow a zither, the other party revealed a strange expression. Zither was something that was usually learned by girls. This young master of the Kim Yoon knew how to play the zither. Thus, he quickly agreed. When Kim Yoon sat down in front of the zither, the stall owner suddenly realized that he was surrounded by girls. Unfortunately, the person in question only saw his sister. "Moa, I'll play a song for you, okay?" Gong Yimo quickly nodded. She didn't know that the young master knew how to play the zither. Kim Yoon slightly smiled. His slender fingers were as white as jade against the mahogany zither seat. He lowered his head and slightly adjusted a few notes. At that moment, the surrounding background seemed to disappear. It was as if they were not in the campus square, but in an ancient zither room. There was also a faint sandalwood scent rising from the side. The autumn afternoon sun warmly fell on the body of the youth wearing a white cotton shirt. It was clearly warm, but it was exceptionally dazzling. Although he was a youth, from the moment he played the first note, his entire aura changed. The quiet zither room seemed to have suddenly become empty. The zither was like the person. Everyone seemed to be able to imagine what kind of lonely environment he used to play the zither in when he was practicing. But slowly, the moment Gong Yimo frowned, the sound of the zither suddenly became lighter. It was as if it had broken through some kind of shackle, and everything was developing in a beautiful direction. Kim Yoon saw Gong Yimo slowly reveal a smile. She sat down in front of him in worship and looked at him. At that moment, he forgot how many people were around him. He only knew that a part of him that had always been missing was finally complete. When the song ended, everyone was still in a daze, including Gong Yimo. Kim Yoon pinched her face again and smiled dotingly. "Lass, this song is for you." Gong Yimo finally came back to her senses and looked at him with sparkling eyes. "Brother, what is this song called?" When Kim Yoon heard this, he touched the strings of the zither. The last trace of loneliness also disappeared under the sunlight. His entire person was unbelievably gentle. This song is called A Thousand Miles Search for Love. Fortunately, he found it. Only then did everyone come back to their senses. The sound of the zither just now was too beautiful, and so was the person. They were deeply immersed in it and could not extricate themselves. They could only applaud very hard to express their admiration for Kim Yoon. "I've decided. From today onwards, young master is my idol," a girl said excitedly. "Oh my God! How can he be so handsome? He's just like the handsome men in ancient costumes in the books. I don't care. I want to be his fan. The girls fell one after another. Strangely, the male students did not feel any jealousy. Perhaps it was because Kim Yoon's temperament was too gentle and not sharp at all. It made people admire him from the bottom of their hearts. Chapter 809. He was good-looking, had a good figure, had a good family background, had good grades, and was also multi-talented. He was simply not giving others a way out. Kim Yoon did not care about these. He ignored everyone's gazes and left with Gong Yimo. After walking for so long, Moa must be thirsty. It just so happened that the juice he asked the servants to prepare could be put to good use. During the process, Kim Yoon did not even look at Shu Wen, but Shu Wen could hear her heart beating in disbelief. She had always liked mature and steady people who were brimming with talent. She hated people like Jin Yoon who ran amok and was ignorant and incompetent. But now, she felt that she did not know this person well enough. He seemed to have only shown the tip of the iceberg, but this tip was enough to surprise her. She suddenly felt that she did not want to break off the engagement. She still wanted to dig out the other party's secrets bit by bit. It was all her fault for being too anxious today. She had said such things without understanding the situation. Would he hate her? But when she thought of how much he used to like her, she felt smug again. If he was angry, she would just coax him. Gong Yimo drank her juice, completely unaware of what others were thinking. She also did not know that Kim Yoon had casually shown a few moves and instantly became the prince of the Platinum Academy. Kim Yoon saw that Gong Yimo had suddenly become quiet and could not help but ask, "Is the juice not good?" He looked at the weather. "Although it's very hot today, girls can't eat cold food. You have to bear with it." Gong Yimo shook her head. "No, the juice is delicious." At this moment, they were on the rooftop. Gong Yimo seemed to be thinking about a big problem as she held the juice with deep hatred. "Then why do you look so bitter? Little cutie." Kim Yoon liked to tease her more and more. When he gently ravaged her, his beautiful eyes were so gentle that they glowed. Gong Yimo raised her head and looked at him. He was clearly still the eldest young master, but his appearance had changed a little. His temperament was completely different. Gong Yimo couldn't lie to herself anymore. The other party wasn't the real eldest young master. Or rather, the soul in the other party's body wasn't the eldest young master. The eldest young master was very irritable and impetuous, while her brother was very gentle. He was like water that had settled down, a pearl that shone with a restrained brilliance. Other than having good grades, eldest young master had nothing else going for him. Her brother, on the other hand, knew a lot of things. For example, playing the piano and calligraphy were not talents that could be learned overnight. But, what did it matter? Gong Yimo swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. As long as the other party was good to her, what else did she have to fuss about? Fuss about where the original young master went? Sorry, she wasn't that noble. Therefore, she decided not to expose him and smiled again. "Brother, I also want to learn talents." "Why?" Kim Yoon was slightly surprised. Gong Yimo said seriously, "My brother is very powerful. As his sister, I have to be powerful too." Kim Yoon chuckled, "Be my sister. You just need to accompany me." "No." Gong Yimo shook her head firmly, "I must become strong." Her eyes flashed with determination. If she was weak, how could she be worthy of standing beside her brother? Moreover, if one day, someone found out about her brother's secret, how could she protect her brother? She didn't want to lose her brother. Kim Yoon saw how serious she was and patted her head. "All right, if you want to learn, I will teach you." Gong Yimo nodded her head, "I will also find a teacher to teach you." Kim Yoon suddenly remembered that the original body did not know these talents. He was shocked and looked at Gong Yimo's overly clear eyes. Was Moa reminding him? If Moa found out that he was not the original body, would she have any thoughts? But looking at Gong Yimo's usual expression, he felt that he was thinking too much. It seemed that he had to be more careful in the future. While they were enjoying the afternoon, an uninvited guest came to their house. "Kim Yoon," Shu Wen raised her head and walked over arrogantly. She had been looking for them for a long time, but she did not expect to see them here. Kim Yoon frowned slightly and said in a low voice, "I said that I will tell my father about the engagement when I go back tonight. Is there anything else?" Kim Yoon's words made the other party's face turn pale. What should she say? Should she say that she suddenly did not want to break off the engagement? That would be too embarrassing. But if she did not say it, what would she do if the engagement was really broken off? So, Shu Wen glanced at Gong Yimo and ordered, "You go down first. I have something to tell him." Before Gong Yimo could react, Kim Yoon was already standing in front of Gong Yimo. "Just say it. There is nothing shameful between you and me." His tough and cold attitude made Shu Wen blush. Have you forgotten that you used to like me? Why, have you changed your target now? Have you taken a fancy to this burden? Don't forget that she is your sister." Kim Yoon frowned, feeling that this woman was very rude. "You said it yourself that it was in the past. I don't like you now. Please don't appear in front of me again." Shu Wen gritted her teeth when she heard Kim Yoon say that he did not like her anymore. "You bastard. Do you think that you can break off the engagement just because you want to? Dream on." With that, she glared at Gong Yimo and ran away. Gong Yimo felt wronged. Did she have the ability to attract hatred? She was simply crazy. Kim Yoon frowned as he looked at Shu Wen's back. In the morning, she looked as if she would embarrass him if he did not break off the engagement. In the afternoon, she went back on her words. Did she think that he, Kim Yoon, was someone that she could do whatever she wanted to him? Gong Yimo looked at Kim Yoon worriedly. "Brother, is it okay?" "It's okay." Kim Yoon patted her head. "I will deal with it. That woman had better not do anything, or he would teach her a lesson." However, the other party was obviously not honest. When he returned home in the afternoon, Kim Yoon found that his father, who was often missing, was also there. When Gong Yimo saw Jin Shen, she felt a little strange because Jin Shen looked at her with a meaningful gaze. "You're back." Jin Shen sat on the sofa and said to Kim Yoon, "Sit down. Dad has something to tell you." Gong Yimo went upstairs consciously. Kim Yoon frowned and sat down. "You want to break off the engagement?" Seeing that Gong Yimo had left, Jin Shen went straight to the point. A trace of disgust flashed across Kim Yoon's eyes when he thought of Shu Wen. She's the one who wants to break off the engagement. Jin Shen did not believe him. But that little girl called today and said that you want to break off the engagement. She also said that you want to break off the engagement because you like that little girl, Gong Yimo. When Jin Shen said this, he kept staring at Kim Yoon's expression. However, Kim Yoon was a person who had been an emperor. His heart skipped a beat, but he did not show it on his face. It was as if he had heard a joke. She dares to say that. Kim Yoon's brows furrowed in anger. This kind of person is really disgusting. Listen to it yourself. Kim Yoon did not explain much, but he took out his phone and played the conversation he recorded in the morning. Jin Shen did not expect Kim Yoon to record it. When he heard Shu Wen's arrogant words in the recording, Jin Shen frowned. He was actually fooled by the other party. Chapter 8:10. The recording on the phone was still going on. Shu Wen's arrogant voice was heard. "Jin Qiao, if you're a man, go and break off the engagement. What era are we in now? Don't play the game of betrothal. Don't think that I'll be soft-hearted if you do this. I'm definitely breaking off this engagement. If you don't tell me when you go back today, I'll ask my father to come over in a few days." Kim Yoon saw that Jin Shen was unhappy, so he struck while the iron was hot and said disdainfully, "Mph, I didn't expect her to be such a person. She wants me to break off the engagement, and she's complaining first. Is she afraid that you'll take revenge on her Shu family if you find out? So, she wants to pretend to be a victim and say that I dumped her." Kim Yoon's words were reasonable, so Jin Shen could not help but think more. It seemed that the little girl named Shu Wen was playing tricks. However, when he thought of Shu Wen crying miserably on the phone, he could not help but say, "Is that really the truth?" Kim Yoon snorted. "Do you think I'd fake it? Does this kind of person who goes back on her words think I'm a fool?" I was blind in the past to like such a person. Kim Yoon's anger was quite in line with the original body's style. Jin Shin thought for a moment. Then, the other party said that you like that little girl. Was that also a lie? Kim Yoon frowned and glared at Jin Shin. What do you mean? How old is Mo? It wasn't easy for me to be a good brother and learn something good. You don't like me, do you? His cold expression was still very intimidating, and it dispelled all of Jin Shin's suspicions. Moreover, when he thought of Kim Yoon becoming like before, he had a headache. It was better now. Therefore, he immediately retreated and only asked, "Then what do you think now? Break off the engagement." Kim Yoon threw the phone on the coffee table in front of him. If they're being unreasonable, let them listen to this recording. It's as if I'm begging to marry her. It's not like all the women in the world are dead. Jin Shin had other thoughts because the Shu family was not bad. However, seeing the displeasure on his son's face, he decided to let it go. After all, she was just a woman. Even if the Shu family didn't want to marry her, there were plenty of other families who would. Thus, he nodded. All right, stop throwing a tantrum. Can you blame others for this? It's all because you were too much of a jerk in the past. Kim Yoon sneered. Fine, it's all my fault, okay? Don't bother me if there's nothing important. Get someone to send dinner upstairs. Moa and I will eat upstairs. His honest words dispelled a lot of Jin Shin's doubts. Thinking of Gong Yimo's small appearance, he might have been overthinking. Kim Yoon went straight to his room. As soon as he entered the room, Gong Yimo was already waiting for him. She looked very worried. How was it, big brother? Kim Yoon smiled and squatted down to half hug her. Who is big brother? It's just a woman, it's fine. Gong Yimo was relieved. Then, she showed a strange expression. That. Big brother doesn't like Shu Wen anymore? Yeah, I don't like her anymore. Kim Yoon pulled Gong Yimo to the table. Gong Yimo frowned. Will big brother like someone else in the future? Kim Yoon suddenly looked at her. Why do you ask? Gong Yimo lowered her head a little shyly. If I'm always obedient, can big brother not like someone else? Kim Yoon's eyes lit up. Sitting on the leather chair, he hugged Gong Yimo and asked with a smile, Moa doesn't want me to like someone else? Yeah. Gong Yimo nodded vigorously. Big brother was her only big brother. Kim Yoon smiled even more happily, but big brother still has to get married. What if I have to have children? Gong Yimo sat on his lap and looked up at him with a serious expression. Must we get married? Kim Yoon nodded. Gong Yimo was conflicted. Then can I marry big brother? Kim Yoon smiled naughtily. Moa wants to marry big brother. Gong Yimo actually didn't quite understand the meaning of marriage. Does marriage mean we'll be together every day? Kim Yoon pinched her little nose, not only during the day, but also at night. Gong Yimo heaved a sigh of relief. That was no different from what she was doing now. So she nodded and said very heroically, Big brother, don't look for someone else. I'll marry you. Kim Yoon couldn't help but hug her tightly and chuckle in her ear. Moa, you must remember what you said tonight. Since Moa wants to marry me, I won't look for anyone else. Gong Yimo, who had no idea that she had been sold off, nodded. Yeah, that's it, it's a promise. Kim Yoon smiled even more happily. The two of them had dinner together, tutored together, and slept together. Actually, childhood sweethearts were nothing more than that. Kim Yoon's marriage was still annulled. The other party didn't agree, so Jin Shin took out the recording. When he heard his daughter humiliating the other party, it was no wonder that Kim Yoon insisted on annulling the marriage. After Shu Wen found out about this, she burst into tears. She felt that Kim Yoon had a change of heart. A woman, even a young girl, had a very accurate sixth sense. However, she had done it herself. Now that things had come to this, there was no turning back. Soon, more than half a year had passed. Kim Yoon had taken the college entrance examination. Gong Yimo was very nervous. Although she knew that Kim Yoon would definitely do well in the exam, she couldn't help but feel nervous. The 13-year-old Momo had grown to 1.5 meters. She was considered tall among her peers. Every time Kim Yoon saw her, he felt as if his daughter was growing up. Seeing Gong Yimo rushing in and out, Kim Yoon smiled as he pulled her into his arms and hugged her. It's just the college entrance examination, not the battlefield. Why are you in such a hurry? Gong Yimo glared at him. Everyone else is nervous. Even if you're a straight A student, shouldn't you act a little? When Kim Yoon heard this, his beautiful eyes blinked and revealed a frightened look. The college entrance examination is so scary. Sister, quickly protect me. Gong Yimo chuckled when she heard this. She was no longer in a hurry. She sat on Kim Yoon's lap and asked softly, Brother, which school do you want to go to? Kim Yoon raised his eyebrows slightly. Moa wants to go to the same school as me. Gong Yimo blushed a little when she heard this and nodded. At the thought of Kim Yoon's results, he would definitely go to school in the capital city. Even if Kim Yoon didn't go to the capital city, they would probably only see each other once a week in Sea City. How could Kim Yoon not know what Gong Yimo was thinking when he saw that she was suddenly in low spirits? In fact, he already had a plan in mind. He just didn't say it out loud. When the time came, he would prepare to give Moa a surprise. Don't worry. Moa's results are good. We will be together in the future. Gong Yimo nodded. However, she suddenly remembered that she still had 5 years to go before the college entrance examination. By the time she passed, her brother would have graduated. When Kim Yoon saw that she was suddenly disappointed, he seemed to have finally figured out the problem. Seeing her conflicted look, he couldn't help but kiss her little mouth. Gong Yimo pushed him. Brother, stop fooling around. Kim Yoon pretended to be sad. You let me kiss you in the past. Why can't I kiss you now? Gong Yimo lowered her head. Because Hua Hua and the rest said that only married couples can kiss like this. Kim Yoon saw that she was so cute and kissed her forehead. Brother, can you kiss me like this? Chapter 8:11. Gong Yimo pouted. She thought that it shouldn't be a problem for him to kiss her like this, but she still said unhappily, Brother, what should I do? Let me count. I'll take the college entrance exam, and you'll have graduated. Kim Yoon laughed. He rubbed Gong Yimo's face hard and hugged her tightly. When their eyes met, Gong Yimo was depressed, but Kim Yoon was happy. You don't want to be separated from me that much? Gong Yimo hesitated for a moment, but still nodded. What if you like someone else when I'm not around? What if you have another sister? Kim Yoon laughed and said very seriously. You can have many sisters, but you're the only one who can have a wife. His eyes were filled with tenderness. Gong Yimo was careless and fell deeply into his doting gaze. Didn't you want to marry me? So, you're the one and only. He was good-looking, and he was getting better and better. Gong Yimo was stunned and said seriously, Brother, you have to wait for me. I'll grow up soon. Kim Yoon kissed her forehead again and sighed. There's still 5 years. Gong Yimo thought that he was talking about the college entrance exam in 5 years. She was depressed again. It seemed that they would have to be separated for a long time. Kim Yoon saw that she was depressed and said bewitchingly, Moa, do you not want to leave me? Yes. Gong Yimo nodded hard. I have an idea. Gong Yimo looked up at him hopefully. Moa, let's go abroad after you graduate from junior high. Gong Yimo was happy the whole day. Although her brother was about to take the college entrance exam, they could go abroad together in 2 years. When she was happy, her whole body seemed to glow, and she firmly attracted the attention of the students in the class. Hua Hua was Gong Yimo's only friend. At this moment, she ran over and asked curiously, Momo, what's wrong? Why are you so happy? Gong Yimo grinned. It's nothing. I just thought of a joke. Yuan Hao saw her smile when she turned around. Although the smile wasn't directed at him, he could still hear his own heartbeat. Back then, he had given the hairpin to his deskmate, but she had rejected it. He had been very sad, but he had quickly cheered up. Anyway, he was already very satisfied to be deskmates with Gong Yu, wasn't he? However, Gong Yimo had always been indifferent to Yuan Hao. Their relationship was only slightly better than the other students. Naturally, she did not understand what he was thinking. Soon, it was Kim Yoon's college entrance examination. As expected, Kim Yoon was admitted to the best university in the city, but he told Jin Shun that he wanted to take over the family business when he was still in university. Jin Shun was very happy, and agreed to let him go to university in City B, even though Kim Yoon could only come back once a week. Gong Yimo was very disappointed, but she turned her disappointment into motivation. I've been working hard to learn and enrich myself. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, Gong Yimo was 16 years old. The age of 16 was a very clear dividing line. According to the law, those who had a source of income at the age of 16 were considered adults. In the past 2 years, Gong Yimo had been eagerly accepting all kinds of knowledge. She had worked hard to be outstanding and even more outstanding. Slowly, everyone said that she was outstanding, but she knew in her heart that it was not enough. Little did she know that she had become the pearl in the eyes of others. Recently, Yuan Hao had been feeling that he couldn't pay attention in class. His gaze couldn't help but follow Gong Yimo. As he wished, they had been deskmates for 3 years in junior high. However, they were only deskmates. Other than being closer to her than others, there was nothing else he could do. This was because Gong Yimo was like a bookworm. She didn't pay attention to the outside world and only focused on reading the books. However, he knew that Gong Yimo wasn't a bookworm. Her eyes were very bright. Other than studying knowledge, she was also involved in many extracurricular subjects. She knew very well what she wanted. She also knew that she had to have the corresponding strength to get everything she wanted. This side of her was too dazzling. Not only Yuan Hao, but many people wanted to run over and curry favor with Gong Yimo. Gong Yimo had rejected them all. Yuan Hao didn't want to be the one who was rejected, so he had been restraining himself. However, seeing each other every day, he had a feeling that he couldn't control himself. Therefore, during the class break, he suddenly asked, "That classmate Gong, will you continue to study here in high school?" His eyes flickered. He didn't dare to look at her directly. Gong Yimo glanced at him. She had a good impression of this taciturn deskmate. She smiled slightly. "Just call me Gong Yimo." Little did she know that her smile had hit the bullseye. Yuan Hao felt that he couldn't breathe. How could his deskmate be so beautiful? His face was flushed red. He didn't have the courage to continue talking to her. He hurriedly said that he was going to the washroom and ran away. Gong Yimo was baffled. In the washroom, Yuan Hao looked at himself in the mirror with disdain. "You don't talk to others like this. Why are you so scared when talking to her? You're like this, you're like this. How am I going to woo her?" Yuan Hao was a little embarrassed and frustrated. Yuan Hao's family was considered quite wealthy in High City. Although it couldn't be compared to the Jin family, it was still one of the best. Moreover, he wasn't bad-looking. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes. At the age when young boys and girls were experiencing their first awakening of love, there were already many girls who secretly expressed their feelings for him. He was also a favored son in the eyes of others. However, in front of Gong Yimo, he was too weak. Therefore, he left a taciturn image for Gong Yimo. He secretly encouraged himself. "Today, I must ask her where she went to high school." He still wanted to be her deskmate. After Yuan Hao ran away, Hua Hua ran over with a smitten look on her face. "How was it? How was it?" She saw Yuan Hao run away with a red face. She thought that the silly boy had finally confessed. "What do you mean?" Gong Yimo glanced at her. Hua Hua's glasses couldn't hide the gossipy look in her eyes. "He confessed to you?" Gong Yimo frowned. Confessed? Gong Yimo had been bullied when she was young. She didn't have time to watch television or the internet because she had endless chores to do and endless bullying. After her mother took her away, she was also walking on thin ice. Besides reading, she didn't have time to do anything else. The past 2 years were even worse. Her daily schedule was very full. She wanted to split herself into 2 people. It was even more impossible for her to come into contact with any messy news. All of this conveyed a message. The 16-year-old Gong Yimo was no different from the 12-year-old her when it came to understanding men and women. The only gossip she knew was from Hua Hua. She only listened to it occasionally. Hua Hua was stunned. "Have you become stupid from reading too much?" Yuan Hao obviously likes you. Chapter 8:12. Like me. Gong Yimo's eyes widened as she pointed at herself. Hua Hua rolled her eyes. You're really slow. That's right, you never watch idol dramas. People like you who don't watch TV or surf the internet are extinct in modern times. Gong Yimo was a little embarrassed. I don't have time, right? Besides, you must be mistaken about liking someone. I'm mistaken? Hua Hua was feeling gloomy when she saw Yuan Hao coming back from the washroom after plucking up his courage. She pulled him over. Class rep, tell me, do you like Momo? Yuan Hao was still in a daze, but when he heard Hua Hua's words, the heat that had not completely subsided instantly flared up. Yuan Hao stood there with his eyes wide open, not knowing what to do. Fortunately, his classmates had all gone to eat, otherwise, he would have found a hole to hide in. Gong Yimo looked at his red face curiously and could not help but say, Class rep, your face is so red that it's about to bleed. In all honesty, she was just telling the truth. She did not have any intention of teasing him, but it instantly ignited Yuan Hao. He straightened his body like a piece of wood, looked at Gong Yimo with his big eyes, and said anxiously, I didn't. It's not me. He did not know whether to admit or deny it. His heart was beating extremely fast, and he felt that he was about to suffocate under Gong Yimo's clear gaze. Gong Yimo tilted her head slightly and looked at him strangely, but she did not know how cute her action was. Tilted head kill. It was actually tilted head kill. Yuan Hao immediately closed his eyes tightly. If he continued to look, he would definitely die from lack of oxygen. This was an opportunity. Tell her that you treat her differently. Say it out loud. He encouraged himself over and over again in his heart, then suddenly opened his eyes. Just as he was about to make up his mind to say it out loud, a voice suddenly interrupted. What are you doing? Gong Yimo's eyes lit up. Brother. As she spoke, she immediately ran towards the door with a look of surprise. Brother, why are you back? It's not the weekend today. Kim Yoon smiled. Something came up at the company, so I came to see you. Kim Yoon's appearance was like a gentle light that instantly illuminated the entire classroom. Hua Hua couldn't help but cover her mouth to suppress her exclamation. It was actually Prince Jin. He was indeed as handsome as the rumors said. Ever since Kim Yoon graduated, the Platinum School had left behind a legend about him. His previous irritable and domineering attitude was no longer known to the public. Everyone knew that the young master was a gentle, handsome, multi-talented, and perfect man who had a sister complex. As soon as he saw Kim Yoon, the courage that Yuan Hao had mustered up dissipated. He knew that the other party treated Gong Yimo very well. Who knew, he might even be his future brother-in-law. Thinking of this, he hurriedly greeted Kim Yoon. Hello, Senior Kim. Hua Hua hurriedly went up and shouted excitedly, Senior, my name is Ling Hua, I'm Momo's good friend. Kim Yoon smiled and looked at them. They were still too young and their emotions were written all over their faces. He glanced at Yuan Hao and nodded. Then, he said to Hua Hua, Moa often talks about you. Then, he looked at Yuan Hao. I heard that you also take good care of Moa. Thank you. His words directly expressed the difference between being close and distant. As he and Moa were one, he could thank him on behalf of Moa for taking care of her. When he saw Yuan Hao, he was reminded of himself back then. He liked her but did not dare to say it out loud. He suppressed it and in the end, only lost her. A sharp look flashed across his eyes. This time, he would definitely not hand Moa over to anyone. However, Yuan Hao did not understand the meaning behind his words and even said foolishly, It's okay. He glanced at Gong Yimo and felt a little regretful. However, he still said happily, It's what I should do, should. Kim Yoon raised his eyebrows in annoyance. How about this? Moa and I haven't seen each other in a long time. I'll take her away first. Next time, if there's a chance, I'll treat the two of you to a meal together to express my gratitude. Kim Yoon's voice was also very pleasant. Hua Hua looked intoxicated and quickly pushed Gong Yimo and said, "It's okay, it's okay. Hurry up and go. Have a good meal." Kim Yoon gave Hua Hua a grateful smile and directly electrocuted her. When she came back to her senses, she had already been taken away by Kim Yoon. Hua Hua held her face and sighed. "If only I had a brother like him." Then, she said, "No, no. If I had such a perfect brother, why would I like anyone else? Wouldn't I be alone for the rest of my life?" When Yuan Hao heard this, he felt even more disappointed. He looked at Gong Yimo and Kim Yoon chatting and laughing. She looked so happy. Did she, not like anyone else? "I'll be more outstanding than senior," Yuan Hao suddenly said, causing Floey to scratch his head in confusion. Gong Yimo's eyes sparkled. "Brother, are you going back today?" Kim Yoon hadn't seen her for a few days and missed her a lot. When he heard this, he deliberately asked, "Does Moa want me to go back?" He suddenly leaned in closer. His eyes seemed to contain autumn water, which made his cinnabar mole look especially seductive. "You're so annoying, brother." Gong Yimo pushed him because she realized that her brother's eyes were electrifying. When she was stared at, she felt numb. Kim Yoon smiled even more beautifully. "Moa hasn't said if she wants me to go back." Gong Yimo glared at him but still said, "Brother, stay with me tonight, okay?" Kim Yoon patted her head and asked another question. "Moa, that boy likes you, right?" Gong Yimo was stunned. Liking someone gave her a weird feeling. She hadn't experienced it before, so she couldn't tell the difference between liking someone and her mother. "Maybe," she answered uncertainly. After all, this was what Hua Hua said and the class monitor didn't say. "Then do you like him?" Gong Yimo frowned. "Like? How much do you like him?" Kim Yoon suddenly stopped. In the school garden, he turned sideways and looked at the girl in front of him. "Do you like him?" This time, Gong Yimo didn't hesitate and said directly, "Yes." Kim Yoon's eyes suddenly became much gentler. "Then do you have such feelings for that boy?" Gong Yimo shook her head decisively. Kim Yoon was satisfied. He admitted that he was a little jealous just now. The other party was young and good-looking. They could be considered childhood sweethearts. However, he was 5 years older than Moa and was Moa's brother. What if Moa didn't like him anymore? But seeing that the little girl in front of him still only liked him, he was satisfied and threw the unhappiness to the back of his mind. This time, everything about Moa was under his control. He wouldn't allow any accidents. Moreover, they were going abroad soon. When that time came, no one would be able to interfere with them. Chapter 8:13. However, accidents were inevitable in reality. Kim Yoon skipped the afternoon class with Gong Yimo and had fun the whole afternoon. When they returned home, there were guests at home. When Kim Yoon saw that his son had returned, he waved for him to come over. Kim Yoon pulled Gong Yimo and sat down together. It was a couple with a girl sitting beside them. When she saw that Kim Yoon had returned, her face flushed red as if she did not dare to look at him. Her parents nodded repeatedly when they saw Kim Yoon. This young man was not bad. He did not seem impetuous at all. Instead, he gave off a very calm and dignified feeling. He also looked talented. It was said that in the past 2 years, he had been helping the Jin family to manage their affairs and had increased the Jin family's assets by a lot. He had the temperament, the looks, and the ability. It was no wonder that his daughter was so proactive. "Hello, I'm Yuan's father. Yuan often talks about you." The middle-aged man reached out to Kim Yoon. Kim Yoon almost instantly understood what was going on. This person called Yuan was his classmate. She had confessed to him before but he had rejected her. He did not expect her to come directly. Kim Yoon gave her face and shook her hand slightly. Then, he asked curiously, "Why is classmate Yuan here? Does the Yuan family have business dealings with the Jin family?" This sentence contained a lot of information. The most prominent thing was that Kim Yoon felt that Yuan was just a classmate. Yuan's father glanced at his daughter. No wonder, it was unrequited love. When Jin Shen heard this, He coughed lightly. It was rare in the past, but it will be in the future. Kim Yoon raised his eyebrows slightly. If that's the case, I won't disturb Dad from talking about business. As he spoke, he was about to leave with Gong Yimo. Jin Shan said at the right time, "That's good too. Take Miss Yuan for a walk nearby. I have something to discuss with your Uncle Yuan." Kim Yoon was a little unhappy, but he still agreed. Anyway, he was going abroad. It would be better to bear with it for a while. His concession made Yuan very happy. Who didn't know that Kim Yoon was a flower on a high mountain in school? Countless people chased after him, but no one could move him. She must seize the opportunity. However, she didn't expect that the time she finally got to be alone was to watch Kim Yoon tutor Gong Yimo. The two of them chatted very familiarly, which made her feel like an outsider. She could only step in and say with a smile, "Classmate Jin, you must be very tired today. Why don't I teach your sister?" Kim Yoon and Gong Yimo glanced at her at the same time. Yuan puffed out her chest. She was a top student after all. Kim Yoon refused. "There's no need. Moa is already used to my teaching methods. If Miss Yuan is free, why don't you prepare some juice for me?" Was he treating her like a servant? However, Yuan hurriedly agreed and turned to leave. After she left, Gong Yimo was a little disappointed. "Brother, she likes you a lot." Kim Yoon couldn't deny it. Yuan wasn't a bad girl, but his heart couldn't hold anyone else. At this moment, he looked at Gong Yimo and teased her. "Yes, she likes me." Gong Yimo was a little nervous. "Do you like her?" Kim Yoon shook his head and pinched Gong Yimo's nose. "Did you forget? You said you wanted to be my wife. How could I like someone else?" At this moment, Gong Yimo also understood the meaning of a wife. She also knew that she couldn't be her brother's wife. However, her brother's tone sounded like he was joking, so she couldn't say anything. Seeing Gong Yimo like this, how could Kim Yoon not understand what she was thinking? It seemed like it was time to start the second step of the plan. The first step was to let Moa get close to him. The second step was to let Moa understand that he was not only her brother, but also her man. Therefore, Kim Yoon directly pulled Gong Yimo into his arms. Gong Yimo immediately became nervous because Yuan could come back at any time. How embarrassing would it be if outsiders saw them like this? However, Kim Yoon did it on purpose. "Moa, are you going back on your word?" Gong Yimo didn't understand what Kim Yoon was referring to. Kim Yoon pinched her waist and made her straddle him. "You don't want to be my wife anymore?" Kim Yoon looked hurt. Up close, his face was breathtakingly beautiful. Gong Yimo blushed and stammered, "The book says that siblings can't get married, but we're not related by blood." Gong Yimo frowned. "But we're siblings." Kim Yoon was so angry that he bit her lip. This little thing actually dared to go back on her word after growing up. He had been waiting for her to grow up until he was about to go crazy. Gong Yimo was a little dazed after being kissed by Kim Yoon all of a sudden. No matter how good-looking Kim Yoon was, he was still a man and had a unique masculine scent on him. When it suddenly hit her face, Gong Yimo subconsciously held her breath. "So you're going back on your word?" Kim Yoon gritted his teeth and asked. Gong Yimo didn't have time to answer. When she thought that Yuan would be back soon, she was a little embarrassed and wanted to get off Kim Yoon. However, Kim Yoon was hugging her so tightly that it was useless no matter how hard she tried. She could only compromise and say, "Brother, don't be like this." Kim Yoon refused to budge an inch. "Moa said that she likes me. Since she likes me, why can't she marry me?" Gong Yimo couldn't come up with a reason. In the end, she could only say, "Mom will be sad." Kim Yoon pursed his lips. "If you don't marry me, will you be willing to let me marry someone else?" Gong Yimo definitely wouldn't be willing. However, on second thought, why wouldn't she be willing? Although she didn't have much experience in this aspect, she knew that she and Kim Yoon couldn't be together. Thus, she asked carefully, "Will you still like me if you marry someone else?" This answer made Kim Yoon furious. It was time for her to understand that he was not only her brother, but also her man. Thus, following Gong Yimo's exclamation, Kim Yoon actually carried her into the inner room. Kim Yoon's room was a suite. Other than the living room, there was also a bedroom. When Kim Yoon reached the bedroom, he no longer restrained himself and pressed Gong Yimo down on the bed. Gong Yimo cried out softly, but didn't resist. This was because Kim Yoon would hug her and play with her in the past. However, it was clearly different this time. She felt that something was poking her. What was this? She really didn't know at all. However, that part made her feel inexplicably embarrassed, so she didn't dare to ask. A dangerous glint flashed across Kim Yoon's eyes. His voice was low and ambiguous. Against the light, he looked less gentle and more devilish. Isn't Moa being too greedy? After a brother marries someone else, he can only be good to that person. He can have many sisters, but his wife is the only one. Upon hearing this, Gong Yimo's heart skipped a beat. She hurriedly hugged Kim Yoon's narrow waist and shook her head repeatedly. But I'm your only sister. You can't be good to anyone else. Kim Yoon looked at her little face, which was becoming more and more beautiful by the minute. Her warm fragrance assailed his nostrils. His Adam's apple bobbed and his voice became even more hoarse. No, a sister can't get that much love. So, will Moa marry a brother? Chapter 8:14. Gong Yimo felt conflicted in her heart. On one hand, she felt that something was wrong, but on the other hand, she couldn't bear to part with her brother. Whenever she thought of her brother liking someone else and only being good to that person, she felt extremely sad. Her hand that was hugging Kim Yoon tightened. Kim Yoon was hugging a warm and fragrant woman. After holding it in for a few years, he couldn't hold it in anymore. However, the woman he loved was hugging him tightly with an aggrieved expression. It was simply torture. Under the torture, Kim Yoon wasn't as gentle as before. He grabbed Gong Yimo's face and lifted it up, sucking on her lips forcefully. He had never dared to go too deep, but this time, he couldn't hold it in anymore. Suddenly, something entered her mouth. Gong Yimo was embarrassed and anxious. She felt that this kiss was very different from usual. If she knew more, she would know that this was the taste of lust. She kept dodging, but Kim Yoon pressed her down tightly, kissing deeper and deeper. Ambiguous kissing sounds could be heard in the room. Gong Yimo's body was hot, but she could feel that the other party's body was even hotter. After struggling for a while, Gong Yimo couldn't break free. She could only passively endure. Her heart was beating very fast, and the other party's heat made her tremble. Slowly, she gave in. Although she didn't understand what this intense and crazy kiss meant, she couldn't help but want to continue entangling. The two of them hugged each other and rolled around on the bed. From the initial probing to the final craziness, the two of them were inseparable and their breathing was chaotic. Gong Yimo gradually went from passively enduring to teasing him back as if she had found a fun toy. Under the entanglement, Kim Yoon completely lost his rationality. When he opened his eyes again, they were bloodshot. The way he looked at Gong Yimo clearly showed that he wanted to swallow her. Moa, his voice was filled with lust, making Gong Yimo's body tremble. The next second, she realized that Kim Yoon was unbuttoning her shirt. Gong Yimo's heart was beating very fast. She looked timidly at Kim Yoon above her body. She didn't know what was going to happen next, but the current situation made her instinctively feel that it was dangerous. Her brother was like a ferocious beast on fire. He was very different from her usual brother. The air was burning and desire was on the verge of erupting. However, at this moment, Yuan's voice suddenly came from outside. "Hey, classmate Jin, are you in your bedroom?" Kim Yoon's reason instantly returned. Damn it! What was he doing? Hearing the sound, he quickly shouted, "Don't come in." Kim Yoon's voice was very irritable, causing Yuan, who was about to open the door, to freeze outside with the tray in her hand. However, she did not leave. Now that the little girl was not here, it was the perfect time to confess. Gong Yimo also woke up. Her cheeks were red as she looked at her brother who was still on top of her but did not dare to act rashly. She suddenly had an idea and secretly laughed. Her brother seemed to be afraid. It wasn't that Kim Yoon didn't want to leave, but he really couldn't bear to. He liked the feeling of being close to her. The heat in the air seemed to have not dissipated, and the messy bedsheets all showed what had happened when he lost control. Moa was still young and might not understand, but how could he not understand? If this continued, he definitely wouldn't be able to wait until she turned 18. Unfortunately, Yuan was still here. Classmate Jin, actually, I came here today because I have something to tell you. Kim Yoon frowned and thought of locking the door first. Although he couldn't bear to part with the little girl underneath him, he was about to go abroad and he didn't want to complicate matters. However, he didn't expect that when he moved, he would be hooked by a pair of fair legs. Gong Yimo actually didn't use much strength, but Kim Yoon was once again on top of Gong Yimo. Their eyes met and Kim Yoon saw the passion, shyness, and mischief in Gong Yimo's eyes. Kim Yoon understood that Gong Yimo didn't understand the consequences of being found out. His eyes darkened. He also wanted to, but he couldn't continue like this, so he lowered his voice and spoke. Moa, be good. I'm going to lock the door. Gong Yimo pouted unhappily. In the past, he would kiss her whenever he wanted to. Every time, she would be afraid that others would see it and think that it was embarrassing for her to be kissed by her older brother. This time, it was finally her older brother's turn to be afraid. She didn't want to let go. Therefore, her legs wrapped around Jin Yoon's body even tighter, almost breaking his rationality. Fire flashed in his eyes. He glared at Gong Yimo, the girl who didn't know she was playing with fire, and kissed her lips lovingly. Her little lips were swollen from the kiss just now, and she looked so pitiful. Moa, be good. I'm going to close the door. Let go of me, okay? His voice was low and hoarse, and it was obvious that his lust hadn't subsided. No. Okay. Gong Yimo told him proudly. Actually, it was very easy for Kim Yoon to break free, but how could he use force to break free when Moa was so close to him? Yuan, who was outside, didn't hear a response. She thought for a while and continued. I really like you. Facing the door, Yuan felt much better. She could finally say those words. I know you don't know me well, but I really like you. From the first time I saw you, I wanted to be your wife. A complicated look flashed in Kim Yoon's eyes. He could tell that Yuan was a good girl, so when he rejected her, his attitude was still gentle. He didn't expect her to be so persistent. When Gong Yimo saw that Kim Yoon was thinking about someone else, especially when she heard the girl outside say that she wanted to be her older brother's wife, she suddenly felt scared. If her older brother really married someone else, he would think about them and treat them well. What would she do? Therefore, in such fear, Gong Yimo suddenly hugged Kim Yoon tightly and offered her lips. Kim Yoon's eyes widened and he immediately came back to his senses. However, Gong Yimo didn't know that she was going to die and licked his lips a few times. Brother. Her voice was soft and aggrieved, like a kitten that was about to be abandoned. Her pair of big eyes stared at Kim Yoon. If you like kisses, I'll let you kiss me. Don't like other people, okay? Her words were like intense lust. At this moment, Kim Yoon couldn't hear anyone else's words. How could he still remember that the door wasn't locked? He pressed Gong Yimo's head and kissed her deeply again. She tasted too good, sweet, and beautiful. It made him want to never let go. He didn't dare to go deeper in the past, but it didn't mean that he didn't want to. He had wanted to do this for a long time. Those desires that were difficult to speak of in his previous life had been suppressed in this life, and they wanted to explode at every moment. He missed this little girl so much that he was going crazy. Yuan saw that Kim Yoon still didn't respond and felt a little strange. Are you still there? Could he have fallen asleep? Yes. In a moment of desperation and reluctance, Kim Yoon only replied with one word. He was thinking crazily in his heart, why isn't she leaving? He wanted to enjoy his girl to his heart's content. Little did he know that his low and hoarse voice could make one's ears pregnant. Yuan blushed and said softly, can you please try to understand me and let me be your girlfriend? Kim Yoon frowned. Just as he was about to chase her away, Gong Yimo kissed his lips and told him nervously, brother. Don't agree. I'll be your wife. I'll be your girlfriend. Okay. Chapter 8:15. Kim Yoon's eyes suddenly lit up. He did not expect Yuan's confession to have such an effect. He grabbed Gong Yimo's shoulders and forced her to look at him. "Are you serious?" Gong Yimo nodded with a red face and said softly but firmly, "Brother is mine." At that moment, Kim Yoon did not know if he was overwhelmed by joy or desire. He pressed down on Gong Yimo and kissed her fiercely. A hint of danger flashed in his eyes and he said in a gentle and flirtatious tone, "Moa, wait for me. I'll send her away and then I'll come, to accompany you." Gong Yimo suddenly had a feeling that something terrible would happen when her brother came back. Kim Yoon had already opened the door while humming a tune. However, he blocked the door so that Yuan could not see what was going on inside. Yuan was waiting for her sweetheart's reply when the door suddenly opened. She was caught off guard and almost knocked over the tray in her hands. Kim Yoon caught it in time. Great, it was Moa's favorite strawberry juice. Yuan originally wanted to apologize for being careless, but when she saw Kim Yoon, she was a little dazed. How should she put it? The Jin Yoon she usually saw was as silent as an ancient well, but now his face was slightly rosy, and his charming eyes were overflowing with color. His tall and straight body leaned against the door, and his whole person was like a handsome man in a painting that had suddenly come to life. It was a breathtaking beauty. She originally wanted to say something, but she could not say a word. The way his hormones were erupting made her cheeks red and her legs tremble. She just wanted to fall into his arms. Classmate. Classmate Jin. Classmate Yuan. Kim Yoon held the tray in his hands and smiled gently. He was in a good mood and did not care about how his smile impacted her. Yuan saw his smile and thought that he had agreed to her request. However, his next sentence sent her straight to the bottom of the valley. "I already have a girlfriend." Yuan was stunned and said with a pale face, "No. Impossible. When did this happen?" She had been paying attention to him every day and there was no other woman by his side. Kim Yoon smirked. There seemed to be remnants of Moa's soft touch on his lips. "When did this happen?" "It was just now. He had a girlfriend, I can't tell you that. She's very good and I love her very much. That's why I've always rejected everyone because of her." But. Yuan still felt that Kim Yoon was lying, but Kim Yoon did not have the patience to pester her. He decided to devour Moa right now. His entire body was screaming. He was about to devour his new girlfriend. No buts. Jin Yoon's smile gradually turned cold as he looked at her. "I'm sure that eldest Miss Yuan wouldn't do something that would interfere in other people's relationships, right?" Yuan's face turned pale. Since the other party had already said so, she would be shameless if she continued to pester him. Then, she turned and ran away. Kim Yoon was not in the mood to care about her disappointment. He took the juice and closed the door and locked it. Who knew that when he turned around, Gong Yimo had disappeared. However, when he remembered that their bedrooms were connected, Kim Yoon knew that the little one had noticed that the situation was not right and had slipped away. What a sharp little one. Kim Yoon thought bitterly that he would have to take a cold shower again. During dinner, Jin Shen angrily questioned Kim Yoon. "You want to break off the engagement with the Shu family and you don't like the Yuan family. What kind of woman do you want to be? For people like them, they either got married early or got married late." Jin Shen did not want Kim Yoon to follow his old path. In his opinion, career and marriage were two sides of the same coin. At the dining table, Gong Yimo and Shu Yu did not speak. Kim Yoon said calmly, "What's the rush? I'm only 19 and you're acting like I can't find a wife. I'm going to study abroad for 2 years. When Jin Shen heard this, he immediately said, "You're not allowed to go." What's so good about studying abroad? What he was worried about was that Kim Yoon had finally learned to be obedient in the past 2 years. If he went astray again, who would inherit the Jin family? Kim Yoon frowned. "What do you know? There are good things in our country and there are good things abroad. I'll learn from the other country's philosophy and develop the strengths of our country. Only then can I manage the company better and keep up with the times. Otherwise, the Jin family will go downhill sooner or later." Jin Shen did not expect Kim Yoon to have such thoughts. His heart skipped a beat, but he still said, "I'm worried about you going abroad alone. Who knows if you'll find a group of bad friends to hang out with?" Kim Yoon frowned and seemed a little impatient. Then, he suddenly looked at Gong Yimo and said, "How about this? Mo-er will go too. I'm a good brother. Mo-er is studying abroad, so I'll take good care of her. Is that okay?" Before Jin Shan could say anything, Shu Yu was a little unwilling. She wanted her daughter to go abroad to supervise the eldest young master. Although the eldest young master had been very good to Mo-er in the past 2 years, what if he went astray again and bullied Mo-er? However, before she could say anything, Kim Yoon said faintly, "Anyway, the Jin family will belong to us in the future. As my sister, Mo-er should be more knowledgeable." His words silenced Shu Yu. "That's right. The Jin family will belong to the eldest young master in the future. If they have a better relationship, when Mo-er gets married in the future, she'll have a brother to rely on." Jin Shan could not help but think deeply. "You're not looking for a girlfriend because of this?" Kim Yoon's heart was tense, but his attitude was very casual. Only his eyes were very firm. "I just don't want the Jin family to be like this forever. If there's no breakthrough, it means that we're falling behind. After all, everyone else is working hard. I don't want the Jin family to be like this all the time. If that's the case, even if I'm the head of the family, it'll be meaningless. Anyway, I'm going abroad because my achievements can't be worse than yours. If you want to find someone to watch over me, fine, Mo-er. If you want someone else, I'll go myself. The others are not as cute as my sister." Kim Yoon's open and above-board attitude dispelled the little fantasy that had just arisen in Jin Shan's heart. He pondered for a while. As a successful businessman, he also knew that learning was very necessary. Society was developing faster and faster, and they could not stop moving forward. He was not worried about his son's intelligence and ability. The only thing he was worried about was that he would be uncertain and learn bad things. After thinking for a long time, he said to Gong Yimo, who was immersed in eating and being invisible, "Momo, what do you think?" Gong Yimo looked up in surprise. Uncle actually agreed so easily? She looked at her brother and thought of what her brother had told her. What else could she do? She whispered, "It doesn't matter where I study. Anyway, everything I have is given to me by Uncle." Chapter 8:16. In one sentence, she perfectly portrayed a well-behaved and sensible stepdaughter. Jin Shan nodded and suddenly agreed. On the day of her departure at the airport, Hua cried like a weeping beauty. "Momo, you bastard. Why didn't you say so earlier that you were going overseas? If you had said so earlier, I would have gone too." Gong Yimo was speechless. Her brother didn't allow her to say it. Hua said again, "Class rep will be heartbroken if you leave just like that." Gong Yimo thought of something and said to Hua seriously, "Hua, if class rep really asks about me, help me explain it to him. I'm very grateful to him for taking care of me, but I don't like him." Gong Yimo thought it through. Since she didn't like class rep, it was better not to give him any hope. Hua said that she was heartless as she agreed. She even said, "Just you wait. After I graduate from high school, I'll go overseas to study. Don't forget about me." Gong Yimo burst out laughing. "It's not like we're in ancient times. If you miss me, just give me a call." Hua hugged her. "I still can't bear to leave you." Kim Yoon was a little anxious as he watched from the side. He felt that he could only relax when he took Mo-er away. When they were overseas, no one would know about their relationship. They would be a real couple. Thinking of this, he was looking forward to it. "Let's go, Mo-er. It's time to go through the security check." Kim Yoon gave Hua a charming smile. "Hua, you can come and play with Mo-er in the future. When the time comes, we'll be your tour guide." The power of a handsome man was strong. Hua immediately stopped being sad and looked at Kim Yoon with shining eyes. "Really?" Kim Yoon smiled innocently. "Of course it's true." Hua wiped her tears and pushed Gong Yimo towards Kim Yoon again. "Then I'll leave Mo-er in your care. I believe Senior will take good care of her. Kim Yoon revealed a strange smile as he hugged Gong Yimo's shoulder with one hand, revealing his white teeth. Of course, I'll take good care of her. For some reason, Hua Hua and Gong Yimo felt a chill down their spines when they heard what he said. With a dive, the plane flew into the blue sky. It was the first time for Gong Yimo to take a plane. She looked out of the window with interest. She was going to leave with her brother and go abroad. From then on, she didn't have her mother, she didn't have Hua Hua, she only had her brother. Gong Yimo turned her head to look at Kim Yoon, only to find that Kim Yoon was looking at her with a very terrifying gaze. All along, Kim Yoon had been restraining himself. His expression when he looked at her was always gentle, doting, helpless, and indulgent. But it had never been like this, where there was a dangerous aura coming from inside out. Seeing Gong Yimo's round eyes, Kim Yoon felt his heart beat faster. He leaned closer and asked in a very seductive voice, "Moa, do I look good?" Gong Yimo only then realized that Kim Yoon was different. His grey hair covered his eyebrows slightly, and his pair of seductive eyes were looking at her with electricity. Even his cinnabar mole was exceptionally seductive. His male hormones were being released freely to Gong Yimo. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that being looked at by Kim Yoon like this would make one's heart skip a beat. Brother, Gong Yimo was a little scared because Kim Yoon was different when he sat on the plane. Kim Yoon's eyes darkened. He wanted to kiss her, but there were other people in the first-class cabin. Fortunately, they had their own private space. "Moa, we have to sit for 10 hours. Are you tired? There's a bed to rest on. Do you want to go?" Gong Yimo's eyes lit up. Although there was a computer to play, sitting was definitely not as comfortable as lying down. So they went directly to the room. Although it was called a plane, it was almost the same as land. There was a double bed and a separate washroom. Kim Yoon told the stewardess what time dinner would be served and brought Gong Yimo in. Gong Yimo didn't expect to have a bed to sleep on the plane. She was really happy. Moreover, this room was private and independent. The other passengers couldn't see or hear. She was really happy. She rolled around on the bed, and only then did she realize that something was wrong, because Jin Yoon was only smiling as he leaned against the cabin door and looked at her with a very subtle expression. Before the stewardess left, she smiled and said that their relationship was really good. Because after Kim Yoon boarded the plane, he no longer looked at her with the eyes of a brother. Instead, he looked at her with the eyes of a man looking at a woman. Brother. Gong Yimo swallowed her saliva. The space suddenly became cramped. She even felt that this scene was very similar to a TV drama she had seen when she was young. It was the part where the concubine was washed clean and sent to the bed for the king to enjoy. But how do I use it? Kim Yoon moved. He sat on the bed and slowly moved closer to Gong Yimo. Under the dim light that was suitable for sleeping, Kim Yoon reached out and touched her face. It was different from the feeling of needing his sister in the past. Gong Yimo felt that he was very gentle, as if her face was an exquisite piece of art. That gentle touch was a little itchy. It made her want to rub her face. "Moa, don't call me brother in the future." His voice had a kind of indescribable blurriness, wisps, and under the dim light, it seemed to be able to enchant people. Gong Yimo couldn't help but whisper, "Don't call me brother." She blinked in a daze. "Then what should I call you?" Kim Yoon leaned over and bit her nose. "Call me darling." Gong Yimo burst out laughing. Her impression was that in the TV dramas her aunt often watched when she was young, only the evil female supporting characters would call people that. Kim Yoon hugged her and fell onto the bed. Their eyes met and his expression was very serious. "Didn't we agree to be brother's girlfriend? Little thing." His hand landed on Gong Yimo's waist. Gong Yimo instantly curled into a ball. "But I'm also brother's sister. Why can't I call you brother?" Gong Yimo asked as she avoided his evil claws. Kim Yoon retracted his hand and hugged Gong Yimo tightly. He said naughtily, "But if you don't say it, who will know? The place we are about to go to, no one knows us." At this point, he kissed Gong Yimo's lips passionately and licked them happily. "That's great. When we go overseas, I can finally indulge myself. Indulge? Gong Yimo was taken advantage of, but she still looked at him very sluggishly. What do you want to indulge in, brother? That soft emphasis almost lit two flames in Kim Yoon's eyes. Indulge myself and I'll love you more. Gong Yimo was very satisfied when she heard that. Although she felt that Kim Yoon was very good to her now, who would care about more love? She hugged Kim Yoon happily and smiled. Since brother is so good to me, I'll like you more too. Chapter 8:17. Kim Yoon smiled and asked, "How do you like me more?" Gong Yimo thought for a moment and leaned over to kiss his lips. "If brother likes me to kiss you, I'll kiss you." Kim Yoon's breathing quickened. He hugged Gong Yimo and forced her to promise him. "Then in the future, other than me, Moa won't kiss anyone else, and you won't let anyone else kiss you, okay?" Gong Yimo blinked. Mom would give her a goodnight kiss. Was that not okay? Kim Yoon seemed to know what she was thinking. He said firmly, "Not even auntie." "Why?" Gong Yimo furrowed her brows. When Kim Yoon hugged her, his patience and gentleness were endless. He said, "Because you agreed to be brother's girlfriend. When you become an adult, we'll officially be together." "Aren't we together now?" Kim Yoon's eyes suddenly flashed with a deep desire. He looked at his innocent sister in front of him, and his Adam's apple bobbed. Being together is different from being together. Gong Yimo was very inquisitive. Her eyes widened as she asked him, "How is it different?" "You'll know when you're a little older." Kim Yoon smiled bitterly. To be honest, he didn't know if he could hold it in until that day when they were overseas. After all, he liked Moa so much. He liked her for 2 lifetimes. He used to dream that she could be happy and stay by his side. He wanted her to only have eyes for him when there were no national issues. This unspeakable wish, the deepest desire in his heart, was finally fulfilled in this lifetime. He knew that his way of doing things wasn't fair enough. There were so many men in this world. He should have given Moa a chance to choose. He shouldn't have purposely chased away the opposite sex around her from the start. But this fairness was a joke to him. He wouldn't give Moa a chance to choose. He knew that he wasn't like this in the past. But perhaps his indulgence and blessings in his previous lifetime were built on the fact that he couldn't get her. In this lifetime, he had a chance. He had a chance. Was he crazy to give her a chance to choose? She could only be his. He wanted her to only have him in her eyes for the rest of her life. Even if he was selfish, he would use his entire life to make Moa happy. Gong Yimo felt very comfortable being hugged, so she closed her eyes and took a nap. However, after Kim Yoon thought it through, he couldn't help but kiss her or touch her hair, harassing her gently and ambiguously. What Gong Yimo didn't know was that one day when she was taking an afternoon nap, Kim Yoon played with her hair for 3 hours without waking her up. How much fun did it have to be to play for 3 hours? It's not that it's fun, but when you're with the person you love, time passes so quickly that it's suffocating. Seeing that Gong Yimo was fast asleep, Kim Yoon didn't wake her up again. He only woke her up during dinner and personally fed her. Gong Yimo was getting more and more spoiled by Kim Yoon. If it was 2 years ago, she definitely wouldn't have let the young master feed her. She wouldn't even take a bite and would only eat when the young master coaxed her. The air stewardesses looked on enviously. One of them covered her face and sighed. "I'm also very pretty. Why don't I have such a gentle boyfriend?" The other one didn't hesitate to pour cold water on her. "Look at him. His good looks are secondary. His skin is so soft that you can pinch water out of it. I can't even stand the look in his eyes. How can you compare yourself to him?" In the end, the two of them sighed. Sigh, they were all people with different lives. After all, those who could spend a lot of money on this super luxurious flight were definitely rich and respectable. Most importantly, they were handsome and young, and gentle. They were simply tempting. Kim Yoon didn't know that. At night, he hugged Gong Yimo to sleep without restraint. He only felt that life was complete. The next day, when they arrived at their destination, Kim Yoon had already arranged for someone to pick them up. The butler service allowed them to move into the house they bought in a day. They even bought the things they needed and went to the school they were going to enroll in. Although the people outside looked different from the people in the country, Gong Yimo and Kim Yoon both felt that their bodies and minds were lighter. Gong Yimo felt that way because no matter how well her brother treated her, she was still living under someone else's roof. She was a little afraid of grandfather Butler and Uncle Jin. Kim Yoon felt that way because he could hug Mo without restraint and didn't need to receive any strange looks. He didn't need to restrain himself. After walking around, they brought a lot of things back to their home abroad. The house was well equipped and they arranged for a part-time worker to come and clean every day. This might be very shabby for the young master of the Jin family, but Kim Yoon felt that it was best for him and Mo to live a simple life without outsiders. Gong Yimo also wasn't used to having so many servants, so she said that it was good. Thus, a small two-story villa became a happy nest for the two. Gong Yimo energetically pulled Kim Yoon and used the things they bought in the afternoon to decorate it. However, they had a disagreement about the bedroom. Gong Yimo realized that there was only one master bedroom, so she asked for 2 master bedrooms. However, Kim Yoon rejected her. His reason was righteous. Didn't Mo want to be brother's girlfriend? Gong Yimo tilted her head. She still didn't give up. But brother also said that he wanted to wait for 2 more years. Kim Yoon glared at her bitterly. Mo is so hateful. Brother only wanted you to wait for 2 more years, but you didn't even give him the most basic comfort. How could Gong Yimo resist such a devastatingly beautiful face? She could only give in. If there was only one bedroom, then she would have to dress it up properly. The 3-meter bed in the master bedroom was already very soft, but she felt that it wasn't enough. She used the goose-down quilt she bought to cover it up. It was so high that if one lay on it, they would sink into the clouds. Kim Yoon looked at Gong Yimo, who was like a little bee, putting the things she bought in place. The corners of his mouth curled up. He felt that going abroad was the wisest decision he had ever made. He could imagine how many happy memories he and Mo would have in this small house in the future. After doing all this, the two of them had a simple dinner and took a good bath. In the end, the fragrant Gong Yimo was held in Kim Yoon's arms. They sat in front of the desk and read. Kim Yoon was very clear about what he wanted. He was even more clear that no matter what world he was in, strength was the most important thing. Therefore, in these few years, he had been eagerly learning. Fortunately, there were some things that could be mastered. He could manage a country well, so naturally, he could manage a business well. However, this wasn't enough. He had to be stronger. He couldn't stand on his father's shoulders. He had to make his father look up to him. Only in this way could he smoothly control his marriage. No one would dare to question his decision. Gong Yimo saw that he was tired. She reached out to massage his temples and said softly, "Brother, it's so late. Let's sleep." This sentence was like a hint. Kim Yoon couldn't help but smile. Is Mo inviting me? Chapter 8:18. Gong Yimo's eyes widened. Her little hand pressed on Kim Yoon's temple, and she was stunned. It was late at night, and there were only neighbors within 100 meters of the bungalow. A man and a woman alone in a room. She had nowhere to run, and no one would hear her even if she screamed her lungs out. Strange. Her brother wouldn't bully her, so why did she feel like she was in danger and wanted to run? Kim Yoon saw that she was very nervous and scared, but she didn't say anything. He thought that she was extremely cute. Mo, are you afraid of your brother? There was a dangerous smell in the air. Kim Yoon's smile was very gentle, and there was a seductive charm in that gentleness. Gong Yimo swallowed her saliva. The brother in front of her was very scary, but that seductive face of his made people fall for him. Strange. Why should she be afraid of her brother? Will you hit me? Kim Yoon narrowed his eyes and thought for a while. That shouldn't be considered a hit, so he shook his head. Gong Yimo said again, will you be fierce to me and not want me anymore? Kim Yoon hugged her and squeezed her. Even if your brother doesn't want you, I won't abandon you. Gong Yimo nodded. She frowned and asked him, And at the same time, she was asking herself, then why am I afraid of you? Strange. Why did she feel that her brother was very scary sometimes? Kim Yoon's eyes flashed with a hint of a smile. That's right. Brother dotes on Moa so much, but Moa is still afraid of you. How sad. Gong Yimo decided to change this bad habit of hers. She said generously, then I've decided that I'm not afraid of you anymore. Brother, let's go to sleep. Kim Yoon carried her by the waist and walked towards the big bed. Okay. Let's sleep. Kim Yoon threw Gong Yimo on the bed, and she immediately sank into it. It was very interesting. However, before she could move, she was pressed down by Kim Yoon. Kim Yoon carried her and kicked off her slippers. Then, the two of them rolled into the clouds. The room was filled with Gong Yimo's happy smile. Kim Yoon's neck was very itchy when he kissed her. The two of them were intimate and the first night passed so sweetly and dangerously. When he woke up the next day, Kim Yoon had dark circles under his eyes. In an environment where there was no need for him to restrain himself, where there was no one to monitor him, patience became the most difficult thing for him to endure. Moa, this heartless girl, didn't understand, but he did. That unspeakable desire, which he had been thinking about day and night since he broke out of the ground, was getting restless every day. This country was very open-minded. Sometimes, he even thought that his current persistence was simply torturing himself. However, Moa liked to add fuel to the fire. Gong Yimo rubbed her eyes. Seeing that Kim Yoon seemed to be thinking about something while sitting on the bed, she immediately hugged him from behind. Brother, I want to eat donuts for breakfast. Her soft and delicate body pressed against his back. Kim Yoon's body tensed up. He sighed in his heart. I want to eat you for breakfast. He patted Gong Yimo's hand and covered the darkness in his eyes. His eyes accidentally glanced at the little bun under Gong Yimo's cute pajamas, and his Adam's apple bobbed. Wait a little longer. At least wait until the feast grows to its most perfect state. Kim Yoon suddenly thought of something and said happily, shall I make papaya with milk for Moa for breakfast? Gong Yimo rarely ate papaya, but it would definitely be delicious if her brother made it, so she nodded her head foolishly. The task of cooking at home fell on Kim Yoon's shoulders. Kim Yoon had an unspeakable thought in his heart. He came up with all kinds of delicious food for Moa to beautify her body so that Moa would become exceptionally delicate at the age of 18. Of course, that was a story for later. After breakfast, Gong Yimo expressed that she was not as fond of the steamed papaya as Chang-shi. Kim Yoon secretly noted it down and brought her to school. Kim Yoon's school was affiliated with a high school, so Gong Yimo and Kim Yoon were once again in the same school. Just like that, a few days passed peacefully. On the way home every day, Kim Yoon would ask about Gong Yimo's school matters. The boys and girls here were too precocious. He did not want Moa to be foolishly taken advantage of. Every time, Moa did not say anything. She actually did not like the schools here, because the higher education here was only for a portion of the students. The knowledge that the youths here learned at her age, she had learned it in elementary school. Moreover, she did not like to interact with people. When her friends struck up a conversation, she would politely respond and then say nothing else, because she felt very comfortable being alone. However, after school today, Kim Yoon saw that Gong Yimo's expression was ugly. He quickly asked, Moa, what's wrong? Did someone bully you? Kim Yoon's expression was frightening. Although the Kim family's influence here was not as strong as in China, he would never allow anyone to bully Moa. Gong Yimo's face was pale. She shook her head and looked at Kim Yoon. She wanted to say something but stopped. Kim Yoon became even more nervous. After returning home, Kim Yoon brought Gong Yimo to the room. He carried her on his lap and made her look into his eyes. Come, Moa. Tell big brother, what happened? Gong Yimo looked at Kim Yoon with a strange expression. In the end, she still shook her head. Kim Yoon frowned. He suddenly changed his strategy and looked at her sadly. Moa doesn't like big brother anymore. She actually has her own secret. Gong Yimo hated to see Kim Yoon sad. That cinnabar mole seemed to be able to speak, as if she had done something terrible to him. She pursed her lips. Then, as if she had made up her mind, she whispered into Kim Yoon's ear. Big brother, don't be sad. I'll tell you. I was in the school garden today. I saw someone doing something strange. Kim Yoon's pupils shrank. He seemed to know what Gong Yimo was talking about. Gong Yimo saw Kim Yoon's calm expression. She nervously grabbed her skirt and said, I also saw something very scary. That boy was very fierce, but that girl, she seemed very happy. I think it's very scary. My heart is very uncomfortable. Kim Yoon looked at her deeply. All along, Moa had been completely clueless about sex. She liked to study and be alone. She didn't listen to gossip or watch television on the internet. Therefore, it was normal that she didn't know what sex was at the age of 16. Kim Yoon could not explain what he was feeling. It was as if there was a fire roasting his body and a little feather scratching at his heart. He saw Gong Yimo lowering her head. He forced her to raise her head and asked softly, Moa is very scared. Gong Yimo nodded. I think they are very scary. Big brother, can I not go to school anymore? Kim Yoon was silent. Gong Yimo continued. Actually, I saw it before, but it was not like today. Big brother, they are very scary. Moreover, I know what the school teaches. I want to hire a tutor to learn more advanced things. I don't want to face them anymore. Kim Yoon suddenly laughed. Then wouldn't Moa be very lonely and not want to make friends? You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.